Hey gang, Kevin here, Life22, and my camera's a little bit off because we've got our guest in the studio today, and it is Amy Sherburne. Amy Black Sherburne?
Yeah, that was my maiden name, Black.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yes, I think for my Facebook I might have Black, but Amy
It's
Sherburne.
Amy Sherburne? Okay.
Yes.
And let's see here, host and in-house guest. Okay, well that's what I had you on the screen as, so.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
So-
Sherburne was definitely more difficult to spell for people than my maiden name, which was Black. That was always easy.
It's pretty
but-
easy. It's like
yeah.
elementary school, right? Like
Exactly, just like
black,
the color.
white,
Yeah.
red, blue, green, orange.
Yep.
Orange usually gets people. So like,
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So Amy is running for mayor of the city of Olean.
Mm-hmm.
The race is this year.
Yes. it is.
Petitions. You got your petitions in?
Yep, petitions are in. Everything's good with those. So, that was the preliminary thing to get through. Have that all done. Was able to meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
That was a great opportunity. I think that's really a basic thing that any new candidate should do, because I was able to talk to people about their issues within their neighborhood. In some cases, was able to actually see some of the issues, and then just for people to be able to meet me, it was a great opportunity. So
Door knocking.
yes, door knocking.
Door knocking is the strongest way that you can win a campaign.
Yes,
I would love to say that it's coming on the show, but
Mhm.
that's not always the case. But
Yeah.
it's because, and I used to get yelled at about this all the time because people would say, hey, like, oh, you can't believe what you read on Facebook. It's like, yeah. You can't judge the comment section on Facebook and see who's going to win a race.
right.
But you got to remember that everything that's on Facebook, for the most part, if that's the number one way people are getting their news nowadays,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the best way to reach voters, but you got to think that you're still reaching a large swath of people by doing that.
You
So,
definitely are. Yeah. I think it does. It gives people an opportunity to get to know you. Like you said, you can't always look at the comments because sometimes they'll go off. They'll sideline into other things, but it's one of those things that if you use it for good,
Right.
I think it's a good tool to use. But there's nothing like actually meeting a person
Right.
and talking to them, and you build a relationship based on being in their presence. I think far more than just reading about
Sure.
them, or
Yeah. No, physical
you know.
presence is a big thing.
Yes.
It's just like so many people are online warriors nowadays. It's like,
Yeah.
sometimes you solve a lot of problems if people just walk outside and touch grass.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree
So,
with you. I
yeah.
agree with you. Yeah, when you're in the room by yourself and you're on the computer and typing whatever it is that you're thinking at the moment, you have to be careful what the things that you say, because people will form an opinion based on that, and that might even be just like a moment in your life,
And
and
sometimes it's not even your fault. Like,
right.
it's easy to be home and having a couple drinks behind a computer keyboard.
Yeah.
And nobody sees that. But if you're out in public, like, hammered,
right.
people could tell, like, all right, you know what? He made an insult against my mother. I
Yeah.
guess I'm going to have to forgive him because
Yeah.
he was drinking.
Yeah.
At home, nobody knows that you're drunk
No.
behind the keyboard. So they just think that's you all the time.
Right, or they don't know if you've had a bad day, and that was just a one-time
And you can
thing.
see that
or,
in someone's face if you're in person with
That's
him. You
right.
can say, like, man, his Monday is kicking.
yeah,
ass. Like,
I agree.
So-
I agree.
So now you're running on the Republican ticket because you're registered Republican.
Yes.
And then you're also got it cross-endorsed by the Dems.
Yes, I did. Yes,
Okay.
yes. I feel like that really is the climate that people want to be at right now, especially for our city. Someone that values the position for what it is. It should not be a partisan issue when your taxes go up, or a partisan issue when you see things in your neighborhood that you wish you could change, or you'd like to be able to let someone know that that's a problem. You feel like it's driving the value of your home down. I mean, these are all things that no matter if you're Democrat, Republican, non-party, these are all of our issues that we have at this point in Olean. And so I'm very happy that I am cross-endorsed, because ultimately that is what this position is about. It's all of us coming together for the right person over party.
Sure.
In this situation.
A lot of times, local politics, especially, it's almost like you can kind of you can have your party values and things like that, but at the local level, like I used to go door to door, and I was cross endorsed by the Democrats. One maybe two races. And I actually won a primary on the Democrats one time. It was quite intense.
That's
but
great.
I used to go door to door all the time. And I think there's a lady, she lives like 2 blocks that way, and I would go to her house, and every year she would ask me how Bernie Sanders was. She's like, "What do you think of our Bernie?" And I'm thinking to myself, like, I mean, it's hard to tell you I'm not a Bernie supporter.
Right.
So I usually just tell her, like, I just think he's getting up there in age. You give him, but either way, she just, because I went to her door.
Right,
So
right. You cared. Yeah. So,
I had a lot of coffee in this ward.
Yeah, I bet.
There was a lot of coffee in a lot of houses. There's a lot of people that aren't still there. I was just saying, I just heard about another house of somebody. I was like, I used to drink coffee with that guy.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah. No, I was very surprised too. I had a lot of people that invited me in, and the first few days of when we could go out and actually get signatures, it was so cold, and people graciously would open their door, and I'd tell them, I can stand here and talk to you, just crack the door open, but it really, being in business.
I lost a Saturday one time because of that.
Did you?
Yeah. Over in Ward 1.
Oh, okay.
I was passing county legislator petitions.
Okay.
2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and this nice couple. They knew my grandmother, they invited me in. I ended up dropping venison off.
I would look at my sheet, and compared to everyone else, I wasn't quite as far, and I'm just like, it doesn't matter. This is important. I may only get
3 hours in their house.
3 hours. 3 hours. Well,
it was because I was like, I went in at noon. I got out. It was 2:50.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, oh man, I just lost my afternoon. I'm like, I had to get 300 signatures by myself.
Oh, yeah. No, I totally understand what you're saying, but sometimes those stops are so worth it.
They are.
Because you hear things from them. If you give a person long enough, they're going to open up to you and tell you the things that maybe they wouldn't normally say if you only gave them a minute or two. So,
and I think that the husband recognized me because I was the one that he was always at the council meetings complaining that there's cats peeing on his porch, and his neighbor doesn't take care of them. He just lets them loose.
Yeah.
And I would always be in support of that. I was like, hey, listen, man, it's like, I have a cat. It lives in my house.
Yeah.
And I'm in support of this guy. I don't want to come out and have nice furniture for my wife. And
that's
she wants to go sit down and just there's cat pee on it.
No, I agree. I agree. That can be an issue.
And he remembered me, and I think that's what started it. Was just like, I like this guy. I like the cut of his jib. Let me, and it was one of those. But
yeah.
So.
Well, you know what I found? One of the happiest days, I think, was, I have thoughts about where we need to head, what direction we need to go to attract people to move here. And I think one of the most important things is to recognize the change of business and how people are, what careers they're choosing. And there's so many, and I know this because we have kids this age and they have friends, and I have, family members that are a little bit older, where online business, and we know this ourselves having Eads Wallpaper, one of the first internet companies to sell wallpaper and fabric online, that a lot of business is done online, and a lot of people build their life having either their own business or working for a company fully remote. And I just knew that the opportunity was there, looking at different models in other cities where you give incentives for people to move to your city if they're working remote. And I met a couple that literally came to the door, and he had a big smile on his face, knew who I was, had seen some of the activity online, and exactly said, my wife and I moved here. We have a business online. We can live anywhere we want, but we chose Olean, and they're from Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
They have a home in Seneca Heights. they absolutely love it here. They love the slow pace. They love the fact that their money has gone farther here. The home that they're living in would have cost way more in Massachusetts. Everything would have cost more in Massachusetts. And they love Olean. There is no connection whatsoever other than the fact that they found a place that they think they could make a home, and they have a child. Then the very next day, the same thing happened over here in your ward. A woman came to her door, had a big dog. She's like, you must be a dog person because he's happy to see you. Huge golden retriever. So I'm trying to hold the dog back as she starts telling me her story, that their home in Brooklyn, where they're from, would cost probably $500,000. And
sure.
Their home is on 4th Street.
That with a 95.
Yeah, and they love Olean. That was what I kept hearing that made me feel so good about where we're headed and where I think we can go. Those two stops, and I never would have met them had I not gone out to the neighborhood.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of stories behind every
ton
door.
Of stories, and when I think about my parents and when they started their life and they stayed here, and how much they loved Olean and felt the connection, there are lots of people I feel that we could attract the same way Dresser attracted families at one point, and those families stayed and raised their families, and some of those children have stayed and raised their family. That could be us, but in a different direction, looking towards the future. What really are we looking at beyond just the manufacturing?
Sure.
I understand that is such an important component.
Well, it's a lot of jobs
family, yes.
right here and there, right?
Right. My husband works for Cutco, and he will be, he's at 27 years now. And so we raised our family thanks to Cutco. We stayed because of Cutco. So I understand manufacturing and what we hold on to is very important, but we need to diversify. We need to look towards people that can bring their jobs here with them. They choose to live here, and it's not so much they choose to work here. This is a place where they can live, do their job.
Right, and you don't have to be like a kid who's just here because their parents are here, and
right.
You don't have to be somebody who's like, hey, it's a cheap place to live, and now I can stay here until I pass away.
Right.
You can enjoy all spectrums of that, all the way up.
Yes, I mean, growing up here, it isn't until you start traveling and seeing other states, other cities, you realize the beauty that we have, our natural resources, our environment, our hills, our water. All of those things are the basics, but yet those are the things I think that make a city great. And, take Las Vegas for an example. They have built their city based on obviously gambling, but everything that they want to make that a more attractive place to live, they have to actually build. They have to build their ponds. Yeah, I mean, they're trying to...
Because it's a desert.
Exactly. But yet, look at how...
They built a mirage.
Right.
It's tough to maintain the mirage.
That's right. But we already have that here. We don't have to build it. It's right. Here. We have what I'm trying to say, our natural resources are what other cities only hope they can emulate. We already have. We just need to build on our strengths. One of the things that I feel is untapped is the water that we have. We're hearing more and more about the depletion of our natural resource water in other states and other countries. We have an abundance of water. We're on the Allegheny River watershed. When we first had our filtration plant built, I remember at the time they talked about it being way bigger than what we actually need. And it was mentioned at that time, well, why don't we bottle water? And it never went farther than just a conversation. I really feel that could be a huge potential for us. We see our water fund and we see our sewage fund. Both funds generate money. Water would definitely generate more revenue for our city.
Because you're producing something.
You're producing something that's natural.
Right.
Us.
cleaning the poop out of your used water. Nobody wants to buy the end product.
No.
Just because they know where it came from, right?
Right.
And when I was on the council, it's always when you're in politics, people always throw an idea. You're like, why don't you privatize the water? Then you don't have to worry about it being a city problem. Mm-hmm. And if you look at it, it's like the only issue with that is nobody would want to buy the poop plant. Poop plants don't really make money. Companies come in and they'll run your water plant because water plants are like gas, electric. Those utilities can generate a lot more revenue, so they're a lot more appealing to private investment.
Right.
But then also you're going to have the same issue that you don't have to deal with this union or that union. You don't have to deal with these workers. Yeah. You don't have to deal with this person. You don't have to make it the headache of the residents of the city.
Right.
The city to make somebody else do it. The problem is that like if the city ran National Fuel or NYSEG, like if we had our own gas division, your gas bill would probably be 3/4 or half of what it is.
Right, but then the maintenance of all of
it. The
bookkeeping,
private industry runs way more. Private industry has a tendency to run more efficiently.
Yes,
because they're looking at a bottom line. They also cost more money to the end user. But, so it's one of those like...
Well, I think, probably at the time it was it was a novel idea. Obviously, we were bottling water. Pepsi plant was there using our water for their bottling.
Was Indec there at the time?
I don't think so.
Because they put it in, 2003? 4?
I think, when the filtration plant was...
Yeah.
No, it was prior to that. Oh. It was prior to that. We're talking probably in the 90s. We'll have to check that.
Okay.
I guess before we say for sure. Don't know the exact year. Well, I think from a perspective of that being an idea is like, well, how do we do that, right? So you're thinking of the logistics of the actual like bottles and the water and how's that? Well, here's the thing. We've evolved from that, like PepsiCo. Huge. I mean, what a profit margin for them with the bottled water that they sell. Aquafina. And, what they do is they come in and they actually just want to tap into your water supply.
Oh, so you do
right. So what happens is
we're just brokering a deal.
Yes, they bring the equipment.
So we don't actually have bottle plant workers.
There you go.
Okay.
We're the supplier. They want a sustainable, eco-friendly municipality that can support the amount of water needed. Okay, sure. There are not many places that have our situation. We're literally on the Allegheny River watershed. Right. That water is endless. PepsiCo in particular, that would be the company I studied the most, but there's obviously other companies that do this. They want a sustainable municipality, which is what we are. They basically take care of everything from that point on, and you get the revenue. So you base it on what we pay, for water. You charge them the same thing. They, of course, are making a huge profit off of their water that they bottle, but so are we.
Right. Because we've got a huge customer now.
Exactly.
And that's the big issue. That's why,
and that's our advantage. That is what we have that most cities do not have. If you look at the way the rivershed is, we are so lucky. We are smack dab in the middle of it.
Right.
And then it trails, like that. So I feel like that is something I would look into immediately.
Right. Because because like you get all these people and I see Paul Petruzzi online complaining about it, right? Like the pilot programs. We give all these pilots out. And it's like, and I get it to a certain degree, right? You want to incentivize people to come here.
Yeah.
New York State as a whole taxes the living hell out of every business that it touches a business and it wants to suck its life force out.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, how do we incentivize that company to not think it's being sucked dead?
Right.
And so they say, let's give you a break on your property tax. We can't help you with all the state taxes.
Right.
We can help you with the property taxes.
And then we have given up something to attract them. I want us to be
something that we
valuable. I want us to be the place that people want to be.
Right.
You just have to pick the right avenue. to do that.
Sure, the water's a great idea because
the water.
The water's just going to pass by us if we don't take it.
That's right. And the thing is I would like to look at it not just as a way for us to generate revenue. I feel like we could add value. I mean, think about that, to the world. Water is needed everywhere. We have a great filtration plant that was overbuilt. I remember it being said, we're not even coming close to full capacity on what we can treat. Maybe there's a good reason for that.
Right.
Maybe this is the time in which, basically water is in such need that's really where you seize the opportunity. When you look at any...
The only hiccup I can think of is just that, so there's 3 municipal accounts, and you're not supposed to intermingle
right.
And
but
if
it
you
is
have an employee, if you have an employee that's handling payroll for 3 different,
right,
the employees of the water plant, the employees of the sewer plant, and the employees of the DPW office, you can split their wage between the 3 funds,
right?
But you don't get to increase taxes to subsidize the water, and you can't use the water to subsidize the city, and that's at least how that was explained to me when I was on the council. You can't take money from one fund unless you have a justifiable accounting reason. Well, this truck was broken by water. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The water department had an accident. They broke it. We need to buy a new truck. They were borrowing it from Parks. We got to give them back a truck. So they'll buy the truck for Parks.
Right.
So it doesn't come out of the coffers.
Right.
Because it came out of...
Well,
so that's the only thing I can see. If you're generating a ton of money, it's water bills might go down for everybody.
Right. Well, okay, so there would definitely have to be some measures taken to avert that issue. But here's the thing. From what I can see with the budget and how things are done, the biggest money generators are, in fact, our sewage and water. And that's very hard to believe, but it is, in fact, exactly what's going on. So those are used to supplement what our general fund cannot, which is not the best practice. It should be more or less you move the money as needed, almost like a line of credit, but the money then gets put back to the fund so that we can do the repairs that we need, okay? But what's happening is because the water and the sewer is such a big generator, it is supplementing the cost for salaries of things that don't necessarily or should be covered. But I understand the reasoning behind it. I would like us to get to the point where our water and sewer fund are actually used for what they should be, and our general fund has a revenue that's being built so that it sustains what it should pay for. So we stop having to mesh all of these things.
Sure.
This is not a good practice for the future to do this, because what we're running up against right now is the lack of revenue coming in for sales tax into our general fund. In order to supplement that, we're taking money from the sewer fund, the water fund, and using that to supplement what we didn't see come in. And it really is a bad practice to get into. We shouldn't have to do that.
You're talking about most recent meetings and things like that?
Yeah, all of the budgets moving forward or have in the past.
And I think what they're doing is they're splitting I think one of the most recent meetings there was somebody in payroll who does payroll for all 3, like that example. And so where they're spending their time roughly between, you know what I mean? They're not... You'd spend more effort trying to figure out, well, it's 40% to this fund and 30 to this one and 30 to that one. Where it's just a third, I think is always been the practice.
I think that's been the practice simply because it's been that way because we had no choice. Because a general fund just cannot sustain on its own. Considered part of payroll or clerical for water department. However, if you look at other corporations and they separate, like let's say the HR department, that's its own department. They have their own budget. They try to be self-sustaining and to a certain extent, and then the actual general fund should be paying for the payroll for them. We shouldn't have to take it out of these other funds. And I think the reason is because we are lacking that revenue from property tax, sales tax. There has not been any projects that are big money generators to our city. It's just we have been rightfully so focused on improving our roads, improving our infrastructure, that I feel that we've lost sight of the fact that these are all great things to keep things moving, to make life better for people. But really, at the end of the day, you have to keep the machine going, so to speak, that will generate the money to support all of these.
That.
Yeah, you first and foremost have to figure out.
You mow your lawn and you're like, oh, I'm all done. It's like, no, home maintenance doesn't stop there.
That's right, right.
You gotta paint the garage.
That's right.
And next year you gotta paint the house.
Or how about we need to keep working, even though we're doing all these projects around the house. We need to keep working to support those projects, and we have to earn an income. We as a city have to earn an income. I understand the pilot programs. I understand what we had to do to draw that attraction, but now we're left with that. And what we're seeing is the incentives worked, but when the incentives are gone, then the business leaves or the business sells. And I think that we just really have to keep that in our back pocket, but that should not be our first line of attracting people,
sure.
Or businesses, and this is where we're sort of failing with that. And then manufacturing jobs maybe aren't paying what they used to. I mean, my dad's generation, if you worked at Dresser, that's it. You're done. You're going to work there your whole life. It'll be the highest earning potential. But that we know is not always sustainable for a city, because a manufacturer can leave and then we're left with what we're left with. And that's why I'm looking at it from the very basics. Okay, Buffalo is considered, I believe, the second city in the climate haven list, which means our region is the most protected from climate issues that we know are going to happen. So by the year 2050, this is probably going to be in the Great Lakes area, most desirable area for businesses, for people to live. Our water will be abundant. And so looking into the future, I see today what our potential is with just that resource of water. And we even see it within our budget, that resource is a huge benefit to our city. So that's just one thing that I think in the absolute near future.
I still think that there's a little bit of a confusion. Logistics of how the accounting can work.
Right.
Because that's what happened back in I think it was when they did the last charter revision.
Okay.
So which would have been 93, I think, 93 into
how
95.
How the money is distributed amongst the city.
So what happened was, for years they would raise property taxes, and they wouldn't touch your water bill. Right. Because they didn't want to piss people off and lose an election, because nobody wanted a high water bill.
Right.
And now they're kind of like, what happened was they went 20 years without raising a water bill at all.
Yeah.
And
not that's reckless.
We ended up getting into a bunch of situations where by the time we hit the Carucci administration, a lot of people blame him for going into deficit financing.
Right.
And he was kind of holding the bag. He kind of got a mess.
Yes.
Because nobody it was council after council after council for 20 years never raising the water fund. And then deficit financing comes, and he's like, we got to sell parking spaces, and he's trying to come up with... The
property tax, you mean, or the water, the actual
They never
water?
They never raised water at all. They just kept
water.
raising property taxes. So during his administration, he had to go through the deficit financing.
Yeah.
He had the state auditors in there.
Yep.
They had to have a reevaluation, which I think was, 2007?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, 2011. They did
it was before. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did a reeval.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what kind of rectified you had houses that were appraised at $30,000 and you're paying $100, or I think it was $150 per thousand on it. Now we're back down to 56, but your house is appraised for a lot more.
Right.
And so they have a lot of these different things, and that's also when the state started slapping hands, because it was about 5 years later after the reeval that I got on the council, and they said you can't intermingle these funds.
Mm-hmm.
If you need water money, you have to raise water rates.
Mm-hmm.
If you need sewer money, you need to raise sewer rates.
Yeah.
If you need general fund expenditures paid for, you need to raise taxes or get it from sales tax or now the bed tax, or be clever with it, generate income through the general fund. Things
Right.
like the rec center brings in rink money, and they bring in pool money, and
Right.
they rent parks out, and all those little revenue generators that are aside from those other two funds,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't want you intermingling it. So if
Yeah.
we make a ton of money from the water department, I don't know how you
would transfer.
How you would transfer
So
it, right?
I read about this, and from what I'm seeing is, first of all, you have to have a surplus that's going to cover any expenses when you have to do repairs and any unexpected things.
Sure.
You have to cover yourself for that.
I think what's the council, 15%?
Yeah, 15%.
15% of what the annual budget is. Yeah.
Which, by the way, our water fund is nowhere near that right now.
Right.
Nowhere near that. And the reason being is money has been moved over to cover these expenses. What I think it is if you have
and debt service, I'm sure.
Yes, if you have enough money surplus in that account and you exceed it, I believe, again, we'll have to make sure, because we by far, if we were to do this, are not the only municipality that has done this or is doing this with
Right.
PepsiCo. But I think what it is you would have to have your common council agree that at a certain point
Threshold.
money can be moved without disrupting that
You
fund.
were talking about online businesses, right? So you have these different, like if you get credit card companies, for example, they'll collect your money, and then you have to, if you're over $100, they'll deposit it. There's thresholds.
That's right.
And so if you get to a threshold that's over this,
then
you hit this one,
yes.
we say, hey, we're going to move,
Yes.
$1 million over to or we should consider it, using it for that. And
Yeah.
I'm sure there's always a workaround.
Yeah, I think what it is, and I could be wrong, but I feel that the water sewer fund, and this probably goes for every city, every community, they want to make sure that you don't deplete your fund so much that your essential services such as water and sewer, you have not depleted it to the point where you can't make a repair, you can't support the community with their water because
Sure.
you've depleted it. I mean,
Well, also
and
you
that
got to
makes
think
sense.
that almost every budget you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have 3 different funds. We have 3 different.
There's
you can
actually
call-
4, I think, right? The debt service is its own fund.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yep. Yep.
It's a negative account, I'm assuming, though. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
But-
yes, but
So, but what happens is it's not a savings account, and I remember being on the council and hearing that, like, it's not a savings account. Like, we don't have just an account with the general fund in it.
right.
It's literally like the liquid assets that the city has at any one time.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, where we'll do 12 months, and we might have a huge spike in the middle of the summertime.
Yeah.
And in the summer, when everyone's popping a hydrant and filling their pools,
Yeah.
and we're getting a lot of revenue. The problem is when you start the budget season, if it's not during that peak,
Yeah.
it's like you're pulling from that general fund, even
Yeah.
though you're not making transfers in the accounting paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
The money that is just the liquid assets all throughout the city for water, for sewer, for general, they're all like you're tapping into them. So if you have like 100,000, you're supposed to have 2 million.
Yeah.
Right? Like that 100,000's got to cover payroll, vehicle repairs,
Right.
to keep the
You
lights on.
need to have that cash flow
Right.
coming in all the time. It's like business, your money's coming in, the money's going out. The money's coming in, and this is a constant,
Sure.
And it isn't until you get to the end of the year and you square everything up that you actually see where you're at.
Right.
So the last 2 years at least, we have been tapping into our surplus. So last night at the meeting, the surplus at the end of 24, meaning May 31st, 2024, after everything was all squared away, our surplus is now down at that point to $1.8 million, which that means we have dipped into our surplus over $1 million in 2 years.
What is it?
$1.8 million at the end of 24.
Okay.
So keep that in mind that 24 ended May. We start our new fiscal year June 1. So from June 1 until now, we already know that we've already not met our revenue and sales tax. So what's
Right.
that say? Our budget now for this year, this fiscal year, which will end May 2025 is probably going to be again at a deficit that we have pulled out of our surplus.
Sure.
And we have whittled that down.
So
just to me, what it is it's like that perfect storm. Not enough money coming in, money is increasing going out, and now we're starting to catch up with what has been the issue, not just in the last couple years, not even during COVID, but pre-COVID. And the reason being, from what I can see, is the property taxes were not raised at a reasonable rate. And as a matter of fact, to look at it, we were decreasing a few of the years. 0, a decrease of 1, a decrease of 1%, a decrease of 2%. Those are behaviors over the long haul that eventually catch up with you.
It's one thing, right? I remember when COVID first hit, and Dave Anastasia was on the council, and he was really pushing this, and I think he got most of the consensus of the council. I'd almost have to look back into the minutes to see if I don't remember voting in favor of this, but they went with like a 0 budget increase. Yeah. And it was because nobody knew, because COVID was such a big, and it's like, it was such a, like, we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, what people's pocketbooks will be like.
Right,
and all
exactly.
That.
People are living at home. They don't know, like, grocery stores weren't getting supplied with food.
Right.
You know, it was one of those, like, could all the food just come tomorrow?
Right.
Or could it just
so
be
uncertain.
years? So yeah, so I can understand a point for saying 0 or 0.5% or decrease by 0.5% 1 year on something catastrophic like that.
Right.
But you know,
you can't continue it. And also, if you really do the math, 2% is not a lot. Like, it is, I understand every penny counts, every dollar counts, but when you take the average home and you say 2%, that's
it's
easier.
Like 20 or 30 grand a year or something, isn't it?
Well, I mean, okay,
across the city.
Yeah, it's not a lot, but it keeps the things. It keeps what eventually, and we're seeing it now. Eventually, the issues are with paying payroll and the pension and all of that.
Right.
Pension has been there forever. You know that keeps going up. You know that payroll keeps going up. And it just 2%, which doesn't, each individual person will not feel it,
right,
helps the city so much. And that is why a 2% cap is a reasonable ask, and that's why you don't have to have what we're doing right now. The community input on the hardship that 6% is going to cause, which I hate to say it, but 6 really is not even going to be enough.
No,
if we just split it and do a little more than 6 at this point, and then match it the same the next year.
I think what's going to happen is they're going to fight it. The council's going to fight it, and they're going to compromise. And what's going to happen is you're going to see them land at like 4.2% increase.
Yeah,
and what's going to happen is it's still not going to catch up.
No, and I don't know.
And then we're going to be Dunkirk.
We don't know for sure what anyone's going to decide. That's up to the council. But I feel our council has a really good handle on what is happening. It's unfortunate that the results of 24 are just now in their hands. It should not be that way, but I do understand that accounting firms, especially a new one that's taking over everything, it takes a while to get the response of really what we need. Probably, let's say, by January.
Right.
We should know what 24 did.
Well, you're a small business owner, so you understand. I know every bank account.
Yeah.
I have a thumb on every bank account
every
of
day.
Every single one of my businesses.
Of course.
I know every bill that's coming out. I know, I can hire staff to monitor that stuff. But
at the end of the day, it's here.
It's
you
here,
know,
right.
And you know what you need to be bringing in, and you know what you should be spending, and you know, like when you have an increase in cost, you're going to go back through and go, all right, well, where can I save and what don't I need? And that is a constant every day for a business owner.
Right.
And as a manager of the city, mayor, you also have to know this, and you have to think ahead, and you have to say, hey, you know, we had an awesome year. We did really well with generating our revenue. Let's just keep on the same path. It's not time to make a change that will actually end up being a detriment, because then the next year you don't know what you're being faced with. We all know
Right.
this running our household. The city is basically the same way.
Sometimes it takes a minute though. Just like you said, with
Yeah.
the new auditor, they're
Yeah.
coming into this, right?
Right.
They're
You have to
opening up the rib
understand.
cage, seeing where all the organs are at, seeing
Right.
what condition they're in, to see this living, breathing entity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take them a year or more. Like
Yeah.
their first set of books I'm sure they were a lot longer than BWB was.
Yeah,
but-
unfortunately, there was a lot of mistakes that were made. And so, you know, nothing that, you know, thankfully isn't going to be like getting us in trouble. But however, some mistakes that make you look at like your following year differently, or even the way this budget is being presented right now differently. I mean, if you're going to raise anything, I mean, the sewage being the least of what we need to be raised was one of the things in this budget that should not have been raised. I mean, we are doing fine with our sewage. We are not doing fine with our general fund. Well, what feeds the general fund? The property tax.
Right.
Well, what
And I don't even
is,
think it's a large percent. Like, isn't it like 25% of our budget? It's a low number.
it is a low number, but
compared to sales tax, for example. Like we're
right.
$19 million budget for just the general fund.
Right.
Because I keep hearing people say $30 million budget. I think they're including water and sewer.
Yeah, $30 million would include like even the fire department and the police department. That's like a total.
They're
total.
$6 million a piece, I believe. Or is it?
No, it's $3 million something for the fire and the police department, I believe, is lower than that.
It's $6 million together.
But yes, the $30 million.
Those are the general numbers that have been there for like a decade.
Like 29 something million is everything.
Right.
And then you break it down into the different funds.
And I think your 19 is the city.
Yeah. But
like,
I guess what I'm saying is the last thing we should be doing is raising a person's sewage bill, because our sewage, we're making a lot of money off of it. So if you're really going to run the budget the way it should be,
just keep it at
that needs
at
to
2%,
or just zero, and then offset. Okay, so basically, I figured it out like for my own water bill. So if you raised it, what the budget said wanted to raise it like 5% and a little bit more,
and I think
5.04. Okay, that's about $18 more in my water bill, which really, when you look at a water bill, that is a lot to raise your water, and then another probably $18 to raise the water and the sewage, okay?
Right. Gallon in, gallon out is, I think, how they calculate it.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a meter on your toilet, you know,
right.
So they don't know how many flushes you take, so they just assume they meter how much water comes into your house.
Right.
They're assuming that all that water comes out.
Right. So like 1,600 gallons, I think, is like the average use of a home.
1,600 is the average adult male's usage.
Okay.
So that, because and this is how it was explained to me when I first became a landlord, was the average adult male is easy to kind of quantify.
Right.
Because guys take a shower, they typically don't have long hair.
Yeah.
Girls have all sorts of hair, and they can, you know what I mean? Some girls spend like 3 hours in the shower and twice a day.
Yeah, for sure. We had 2 kids. And myself, yes. We all did that, I think.
Right. But to try to peg down what the average consumption is, it was easier. An average adult male uses 1,600 gallons a month.
Yeah.
And that's how they base your minimum water usage.
Got it.
They're assuming that you're just one person is going to live in this home, you're going to pay the minimum.
Yeah, that makes sense.
$4.60 something or whatever it was.
But. Yes. So that makes sense. But I guess what I'm saying is out of all the things to raise and be concerned about, that the sewage should not be.
I would almost say if you were keeping increases on water and sewer, just because they're also a lower. They end up being a lower.
They feel lower, but are they making a difference? No, they're not.
They're raising the bill by. See, because sometimes this is, I think, where numbers confuse the general public. For example, like if you say we're doing a 6% tax increase, is it 6% of what your house is worth?
No. Yeah.
Or is it 6% of this? It's not 6% of the city budget.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right, right. Where are you calculating that percentage?
What is that 6%? Is it 6%? We need to do a 6% increase because if property taxes are only like 20 to 25% of what makes up that 19 million, a 6% increase of the whole city budget at 19 million, well, that's a lot of money.
Right, right.
And that's you know what I mean? Versus like you'll notice your bill will go up about 6%.
Yeah. So the way and of course we'll have to make sure for sure that this is how it's calculated, but I believe the percentage is based on like when you look at your water bill and how much is it per gallon, and it's like 0.00104.
It's about 2 cents. Yeah, 2 cents a gallon for both water and sewer. So it's about a penny a piece.
Yeah. So then that's where the percentage is calculated on that.
So they go up by 6%. Right.
Yeah. So if I calculated it correctly, I would look at it and say my sewage bill portion, which might be about, you know, I'd have to look at it, but I feel like it was somewhere in the neighborhood of like maybe $18 or something more a month that you'll actually see in that bill. But we'll have to actually look at the breakdown. Sure. But the point is,
I was going to say they go up by like I want to say even when I was on the council they went up. I think 10% was the biggest because we just finished the sewer project.
Yeah,
and so
makes sense. You're trying to build that up,
right? Anticipating debt service payments.
Right.
And now also we have all the infrastructure issues, right? Like
right.
They've got the discharges into
okay, but that's a perfect example of this is what started me with this whole let me understand where the money is and how it's separated. I have learned so much in the last month, and I'm happy for that. But
I bet you it's going to be I was 2 years on the council, and I was like, I'm up for re-election. I still don't understand all of it, you know. And
yeah, I mean, luckily, and you do too, as a business owner, understand budget and budgeting and how things are figured, and I probably know way more about the way the state does things, because some of the things I've had to actually do myself instead of the accountant. But anyway, from what I understand from the way our water bill is set up, okay, there is always enough money in there to take care of what we need to take care of. Although the last couple years, I think more money was moved out of the water fund to cover cost of other things than should be, because now we're in a situation with the water fund where it's not high enough, our surplus. I think it's like $400,000 or something.
And they did
not
have
enough.
water main replacements with Washington Street. Like they were doing water. I don't know if
that
they covered sewer.
That and the whole what you said about the 25% being applied to other people's salaries. It's dwindling it down to the point where it just is not a good practice to be if you're a healthy municipality with money that generates and supports each fund. It's just really we're seeing it right now. It's not the way to do it, because eventually when you start morphing all of this, you lose sight or focus on really what the issue is. Okay, because the money is just being moved and then it's shuffled, and it gives the illusion. Yeah, it gives the illusion that you're doing okay, and the
free
sewage.
rental properties, and one's losing a bunch of money.
Yeah, it's like paying.
But you pull money from the other two to pay for this one. But once this one, if you're doing everything correctly, this one should start making money.
Right.
And then these ones have been making money.
And then they can be left alone, and do their thing.
You want them to be self-sufficient,
and then you've got this other part off, its feet, or you've gotten it off the ground, okay? And that's really, I think, essentially from what I have read and learned, that the water and sewer obviously is probably a big money generator for most communities. It can be almost like your own line of credit. But then by the end of the fiscal year, I think the comment was made something about the mayor acknowledged the fact that money from this account needs to be moved back by May 31st, which is the end of our fiscal year, to pay it back. So essentially you're using your water or your sewer, depending on who's...
to cover some offsets.
Yes, as a line of credit, then after you've gotten through whatever crisis moment was, then you go, okay, now
shortfall in sales tax, you need to cover the difference. Let's
now we're doing okay. It's doing well. Now move the money back and keep it where it was supposed to be. That is not happening. That isn't happening. Not that I see. I think what's happening is it's moved over and then it just blends right in, and then you never really realize how bad that general fund, what shape that general fund's in. So like with the sewage issues we have, when we're generating that kind of money to take care of unforeseen events such as this water, the raw sewage going, we have and should be able to fix it with the money that we have generated from our sewage fund.
And with those upcoming projects, that's why I would say I would probably keep them at a 5%. You know, the average was about 2% because inflation's what on average 1.5%.
Keep it there, yes, but even if we keep it there and not raise it, it's still okay. It's still good. You don't. We've already generated enough money for that for the unforeseen events. What's happening is that is the piggy bank that's paying everything else. You can't do that. You have to look at your general fund and say, what are we missing? We're missing generated money from all these components. Well, how are we going to make up the difference? Well, you have to think about things like what I mentioned with the water bottling. Is this going to cost us money up front? No, it shouldn't, because that company comes in with their own filtration.
Maybe a smidgen, just cover a little bit of overtime for people to tour facilities and whatnot.
But look, this is
inconsequential.
But here's the thing. When you have something desirable, you don't have to make the concessions. They make the concessions.
Sure.
They say, let's look at the opportunity of Olean and say, hopefully they would look at it the way I'm looking at it. We will do anything to be able to tap into their municipality. If they do not have the money to take care of whatever they foresee being an issue, we will help them with that. We will help them be able to make us successful by generating or giving them the funds that they need to be able to be successful for us. So I would hope that if we even looked into this, that we would make sure we were safe in the fact that we would not be out any money, which is what the thing is that people don't like to see. This extra spending unnecessarily, putting ourselves out there for everyone and not getting anything in return that we feel was a good, solid, negotiated benefit to our city. And that's one big strong suit that I have. I'm good, at negotiating. I have to do that for our own business with some of the biggest companies in our industry, where even just a little bit adds up to a lot. An extra week of a discount for us to do a sale, or, I speak with them and we end up, in the end, having a very fair deal, and we walk away both feeling good about what we did.
That's the best part about negotiation, because you don't do too many negotiations if you always walk away feeling awesome and everybody else around you feels crummy.
Right.
Because then you'll never do any more negotiations.
You won't, and you won't feel like you were, that you were fair, or like you said, at some point, it's if you need them again, they're not going to be there for you.
It's the good sport analogy, right?
That's right.
If your kid's a good sport, they're going to have lots of friends, and they're going to get invited to lots of games to play.
Right.
And if your kid's a bad sport, they're gonna win right now.
Yeah,
but they're never going to win all the series of games.
And
they're never
also,
get invited to them.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you know what? That's a great analogy. And honestly, our kids ended up being very successful in our school district. They were able to get into any college that they applied to. They were afforded scholarships at the beginning of their school career. To me, I knew what the potential was. What was most important to me as they were going through school is to be a good friend, to learn how to socialize with other kids. I knew that we would be able to handle the academics of it. I never pressured them to have straight A's or a B wasn't good enough. It was, did you make a friend at school? Were you good to a person that was maybe struggling? Did you share a snack? These were the things that were always important to me. And that really is, as a city, we have to all feel that way as well. That when I first heard about the spillage was probably last year when it finally became a big deal on social media. Living on Irving Street, that to me was just gut wrenching to think that sewage was going into the river. Awful, awful, awful. I did not realize how often it happened, and even just a little is too much. I know people want to quantify, well, how many gallons are we really talking? Does not matter. Does not matter. Any bit is too much, because
that's my argument.
That means we have devalued our natural resource, and we have become a neighbor that no one wants to be around. Okay, that is a problem. That is embarrassing. That is something that should have been absolutely first priority for our mayor, to be a good neighbor. Before we worry about anything else, what are we doing to our environment? What are we doing for our own generator of revenue? That is a river that we have all assessed could be possibly something more than what it is, with people being able to get on there with their kayaks, not for just one day or not just locally, regionally be a place. We have a river that can be kayaked that not many. Why would you not uphold the purity of that river as much as possible? So
I think the quantity to me would be a big, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
There's 8.8 million gallons per minute flowing down the river.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but
to have like 2 million over 48 hours of sewage being dumped in there, and it's already kind of mixed with storm. I understand the point that, like, I don't want to swim in a pool where one of my kids' friends pooped in.
Yeah,
right?
It dilutes, but it then concentrates. That's the problem with this. It's diluted where we are. We don't feel like it's a big issue in this area. But as we know, it all collects to one area. Where's that one area? Kinzu Dam area. What's it doing to the environment every time that happens? It's not just the poop that dissipates. It's what is also encompasses in that waste, collects in one spot, and it keeps collecting in that one spot. And some things never break down. Some things ruin the environment. That's the problem.
Right.
And same with the oil issue, and that's why they dredged it, for that very reason. How much could possibly be leaking out of those old buried
over on the
pipes,
7th Street?
Right at the end where I live. How bad of a problem is that? Well, bad enough that they disrupted our entire summer working on that project with a god-awful sound of gravel being filtered and thrown back in, or, all the bottom being cleaned and put back in. That was a big enough problem that was done how many years ago, and here they are at this point fixing it. Well, it's no different for what's being wasted, put out to the river.
I think there is a misconception. Like you found out about it on Facebook 2 years ago. And I think that there's reporting requirements that just started for municipalities of our size.
Yeah.
So where, like, Portville, for example, does similar stuff that we do. Salamanca doesn't have the reporting requirements that we do because they don't meet the certain thresholds. So, or it also depends on, like, your sewer plant operator. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I personally know the one that operates ours. Like, if his kid stole 5 cents worth of gum, he'd walk back into the store. Like, but there's some people that, like, I don't know the one in Salamanca. I don't know the one in Portville.
Well, they say they have been reporting that they're 100% compliant, Salamanca.
To me, that's hard to believe. Just because, like, Portville just got in trouble for, like, the EPA came in and they gave a whole bunch of money to fix their problems. Mm-hmm. Because
we actually could have had a lot of money as well to fix our problem. We haven't asked, we haven't looked into it. After, again, at this point you have to take, like, certain sections of what it is you want to learn about and absorb it and then move on. So right now I looked at what I saw is the master plan for our sewer system, because to me, logistically, I'm literally thinking in my mind, now, if I have to oversee this, how is that actually done? And what is the equipment required? And how, do you rip up a hole? Okay, so this is my thought process, especially as a person who loves to cook, who owned a restaurant. It's like a recipe. What steps do I need to take in order to finally have the finished product? So that master plan was developed in 2005, 6.
Okay.
Was in 2016 updated.
That's when we did the consent order.
Uh-huh.
I just got on the council at that point, yeah.
Okay, so it was updated with tasks that were completed and things that still need to be completed. There are so many items still needed to be completed.
Sure.
There are items that should have been done in 24. There's a reason for a master plan to give you an idea of how to make sure you have the money, make sure you apply for the grants that need to take care of it, implement, take care of the issues. They're all there. And one of the bigger things that needed to be addressed is Green Street area, which is 4th Street area, Sullivan area, which, yes, we had the DRI take care of some of the infrastructure underneath. Did it fully take care of the issues? No way.
Yeah, we've got 200 years of...
No way. Yes. And every hard rainfall, water backs up in the businesses on Union. That is not acceptable. We have a master plan that we should have been following. It does extend all the way to 2042. However, within that range are all these things that we should be targeted. Has it ever been mentioned? No master plan has ever been brought up in the last 6 years that I know of, if not more.
After I got off the council, I still listen to like every single meeting that's available to listen to.
Yeah.
And I hear the same numbers that were thrown at me.
Yeah.
$250,000 a year. That's what the DEC requires of us.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when we signed that consent order, I remember being told, like, this is the minimum you have to put in every year. It's like, if you ever look at your credit card statement, and it says, like, if this is the minimum, but this is how many years it'll take to pay the minimum, right? And it's like, and if you want to pay it off in 5 years, well, they told us at the beginning, the minimum we're expecting out of you is $250,000 a year for sewer lining and all this other stuff, but they even specified, like, if you just stick to the minimum, you're not going to meet the 2042 deadline.
We'll never get through all of it.
But they don't talk about that anymore. And even into these meetings, all I hear is $250,000 a year, $250,000 a year. Well, we have to spend $250,000 a year. Well, you could spend $500,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know if, and it doesn't have to be just applied to sewer linings, for example.
Right.
It could be catch basins for storm sewer water.
Yeah, all of that. All of it is right there. Why we're doing it again and having another analysis or evaluation done for $50,000. Yeah. It's all right there. It's all what has already been written is relevant to what the issues are. Water, as a business owner, especially a restaurant, water was always the biggest issue, no matter what, for us, whatever the case was. Water needs to be hot enough. Water's coming out of where it shouldn't be coming out of. And homes are the same way, right? Your roof leaks, this ends up being an issue for everything, or your toilet doesn't work, whatever the issue. Water should always be top priority. I am not assuming this, but I am just saying, looking at a master plan, it's never mentioned. There's nothing completed. There's been a good many years, other than the DRI, which was able to cross off the issues that were listed that were taken care of with the DRI. I'm assuming when we do this road, again, we'll be able to go back to the master plan, cross off those issues. If they determine that those are part of what's going on with why 4th Street pump is bursting, and, the point I guess I'm trying to make is the leadership, okay, which I understand the Common Council votes and they're overseeing, but honestly, from the top, the leadership, meaning the mayor, needs to always have their eye on that. And I think that has been where we are failing. We are failing the city. And it's a burden on the people that are just trying to do the right thing and pay the taxes that they pay and pay the water bill and pay the sewage. And it is up to us to make sure we use that money first and foremost for these issues that are causing the most distress. No one wants raw sewage in their basement.
Right.
No one wants
that's...
another municipality coming into our court or city goings on, and person after person after person pleading for us to take care of it. That's just unacceptable. It's not right. And really, honestly, sitting there that first time in the chamber or in the common council meeting, to have them stand up and then address me even to say, you're running for mayor, are you going to take care of it? That's a feeling of embarrassment that I don't ever want anyone to feel.
Sure.
If I'm the person leading, I don't want others to feel that way.
And my issue is not with the residents of the nation or with the residents of Salamanca.
Mm-hmm.
It was more or less like, I thought about this after the fact, was that the 2 meetings ago when they had the Salamanca councilmen come up, the nation's what are they, tribal council?
Yeah, the council.
Their councilmen come up,
mm-hmm.
and it's like, if we ever had to talk with another municipality,
mm-hmm.
like, we would send them an email, a phone call, reach out to them first.
Yes.
And people have made the argument, we have. It's like, I was on the council when there was sewage discharge into the river.
Mm-hmm.
There was never, there was never a phone call. There was always an article in the paper.
Yeah.
Salamanca contemplates, the Seneca Nation contemplates suing the city. I never recall being informed of a litigation,
mm-hmm.
a letter. There was
I mean, do you think though, if
I'm not saying that the sewer discharge is...
No, I get you.
I'm just saying, like, from a parliamentary standpoint, like, for some diplomacy,
yeah.
How do they just come up and say, hey, listen, I'm a tribal councilor,
mm-hmm.
You need to fix this? It's like,
mm-hmm.
you could have, instead of coming up onto the soapbox,
mm-hmm.
you could have just sent a phone call first.
Yeah, no, actually, Glenn Wall did have a personal, meeting with the mayor. I'm not trying to speak for him, but I wanted to gain a better understanding on where did the ball drop? Where's the lack of communication? Now, from what I understand, Glenn has been coming up to our meetings every month to say the same thing over and over. When are you going to address it, Bill? When are you going to do it, Bill?
So somebody made that mention.
This was after a private meeting, because that is in fact what they did. They had a private meeting about it, and it wasn't going anywhere.
Sure. My point, like, is because somebody I spoke to also brought up, like, Glenn Wall has been going there the entire time,
mm-hmm.
and it's like, yes, but Glenn Wall is just a resident in Little Valley,
mm-hmm.
not actually part of the affected community. I mean, sure, I'm sure he utilizes the river as well, but I'm saying, like, the municipality that is claiming to be directly affected by the sewage discharge, they didn't send Glenn Wall.
Right.
You know what I mean? He wasn't like their messenger.
Well, I think the message really came from the state. Like, I would think that most of us would agree that when the state tells you have to do something about this, other municipalities shouldn't have to say then, hey, you were told you needed to fix this. You know it's an issue. Even your own citizens want you to fix it. Why aren't you fixing it? What can we do to help you? We're here to help. We don't want you to get in trouble. We don't want to see this happen anymore.
Right.
Why aren't you doing it? And when you're not getting an answer, the best thing to do is to organize and to come together as a community and then ask in one voice. And I think that's what's going on. We have been told we're supposed to do it. They're asking now, why aren't we doing it?
Right.
That's what I think's happening, which I can't blame them. I think we all are in agreement. Why isn't it being done?
Right.
It's not just them. We want to know.
Sure.
And I talked to residents over in Seneca Heights, and they are paying their taxes and they have beautiful homes, and they should not have sewage in their basement. They should not have that.
Sure, and that's why I believe that everyone gets angry at, like, why does it discharge into the river? It's like, well, if you're designing something if a pump were to fail, it's got to go somewhere.
Right.
Right. So, like, do you want it on this side of the levee?
Right.
Or on the river side of the levee? Like, because
It's-
there would be nothing to mix it with on our side. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
know.
it would just sit there in a pile.
I know.
Yeah, so-
And it's like when you try to wrap your brain around what exactly is it, what is making this now come out this way. Well, to me, it feels like it's quite possible that those old pipes that were leaky were taking off the pressure, especially like down Union Street, right? There's stories about them, some of them being even wooden. I don't know. I don't know.
Sure.
But it stands
Now
to reason.
you've relined them.
You've centralized the pressure of that water. It's going that way.
Sure,
Now
like a
it's going to
brake
go
line.
to the least resistance.
Like a brake line.
Yeah,
you have a leak in your brake system. You get that section fixed. And now all of a sudden, now all of a sudden, the pressure can now go. It can hold better pressure because it's not leaking now. And now all of a sudden, that higher pressure causes other spots to start leaking.
There you go.
Yeah.
So when we did the DRI project, our master plan of fixing our sewer was already designed or thought through or
because the DRI got introduced in 2017,
so
18?
The DRI came after, but obviously I would think everyone looked at it and said, well, great, now this is time to check the boxes off, of all the things that we know we have to address with the sewer. But why wasn't it thought, well, gosh, what we just said, if it's being fixed here, then that pressure's going somewhere else. Where's the next place? Well, now we're seeing it.
So, and
it's coming in.
You have to chalk it up to there's a lot of people out there, right? So
not
like you and I can't comprehend like every little moving piece in the city.
Yeah,
I try to, but
no, it's hard. You have to take
and so to think about it, be like, oh, we just solved this problem over here. We're having. Sometimes you don't realize it's a problem until you see the next spot in the brake line burst, and you're like, I just got to replace the whole line.
Yeah. Yeah, or
but,
at least let's start with the area in which is it's affecting, and then when that gets fixed, well, then where's it going next? Sometimes
you gotta wait for the next leak, though.
Right, right. Well, maybe we can use this as an example and say let's try to assume that it might be this other area. That area's got to be next. Maybe not at the same time, but it's got to be within the next year or two of that, or just, and again, I think like someone who is knowledgeable and an expert at this can explain that might be what's going to happen, and then we try to minimize or mitigate those issues that are going to pop up. I mean, there's no perfect answer and no perfect person. However, you have to just try. You have to at least acknowledge and be the voice that says, yep, I will be responsible for this. And
wow, brain fart. Sorry.
It's all right.
We I guess my only. Wow, you just.
It's all right.
You got me.
No,
you got me falling down.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah.
It'll come back to you. I think like another thing everyone has asked me as I've been talking to people is, please don't put any more roundabouts in
and that's a lot of people don't. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is I think that the bottom line, the good, if people really, really think about it, the good outweighs the bad for sure of those. I think the issues that people have sometimes is just other people just do not know what they're doing when they come in. It's
always somebody with PA plates.
It's just like, and the thing is I think every community that has roundabouts sees this happen, and you either got to laugh it off and say, I mean, I clearly was the one that should have went next. Why are you now in front of me?
Right.
These are the issues. However, I would take that over sitting at a red light forever.
I think people forget how long we used to wait on Friday afternoons.
Not only that, but okay, I would say I am fair in the assessment that I grew up on Union Street. Our home growing up was on 2nd Street. However, I lived on Union Street having a business there, and I can tell you that the exhaust that would be generated from all of the trucks, cars, semis, sitting at a red light in front of our store on a hot summer day was overwhelming, to say the least. Like, to the point where some days I would have to cover my face and walk out the door on a really hot day. So there is definitely positives to having the roundabouts.
Because they're keeping the cars moving.
You keep the cars moving.
And
you
so
don't have to pay for the red lights.
People also don't like them. They don't like them, and so they're like, well, why do you keep putting them in? It's like, well, even just from if you were a anti-roundabout mayor,
mm-hmm.
you go to make a traffic change
mm-hmm.
at an intersection,
mm-hmm.
DOT, state of New York, is pushing roundabouts.
Yes,
like,
they
that's
are.
it. Like, so
they're everywhere now.
And you have to get their sign-off on anything that they are even remotely funding.
Right.
So it's like you have to get DOT sign off on stuff, and it's like if you don't have it, then you're not getting your intersection, or you might take a hit in your CHIPS funding or whatever, you know. So it's
well, people have to look at Union Street a little bit different too. I understand. Again, grew up on that street. Used to be a drag. You know, like. A car would go from 0 to 30 and then hit the red light, and then go 0 to 35, hit the red light. And it was very unsafe. I almost got hit more than one time. That really, if we can just draw back the businesses that we want to attract, that will make sense to people. And we need to figure out a different way so that people can get from point A to point B without taking that road. That's a whole different discussion someday down the road. Obviously, Front Street needs to be looked at. It's becoming way bigger of a street, way more issues with it now that people are using it more to avoid, North Union. So, I think eventually things will even out, and Union Street will become what I think we all hope it to be. A place where we're all going to shop and do fun things and have, nice Christmas events down there more so. West State Street needs to be looked at completely different. I have not even looked at the plan. I don't agree that it should have roundabouts, but I do think we need a thing to slow people down.
So I know curb diets do that. So by bringing the curbs in, minimizing the lane distance, you have a big wide lane. People think they can go Autobahn speeds.
You can't. It's hard.
I learned this from my first DPW, or my second DPW director I ever got to meet. And that was what he said. He goes, bump outs, they're ADA compliant. And people slow down for them. They
slow down because if we don't have red lights, we shouldn't have to go that fast. Take your time. You're going to get there faster without the red lights. Just go a little slower.
That people keep getting from their phones.
It
builds their ADHD, and now they just get behind the wheel of a car and they just want to.
Yeah, it very well could be. We have to change our mentality, especially for Union Street. Go slow. I guarantee you, if you put every red light back the way it used to be, it would take you so much. On a busy day, it would take you so much longer to go from Pizza Hut down to the Four Corners with all those red lights than if you were to just go slow, methodically, and make your way.
Sure.
Now, down on West State, again, don't know exactly the plan, but I
hear bits and pieces, so it's not my...
This road needs to be looked at for what it is, for people to get down to essential stores at this point, okay? Down on that end of town, and a lot of people want to bike, okay? The way Union Street's bike path is set up is insane. Everybody can see the problems with that. We have to make West State Street not just a shared road, but its own path for bikes. To me, feel like no median whatsoever with grass. It should be a bike path in the center, barricaded in some way that is low maintenance. No in the ground vegetation.
Of people
no, we can't. We can. No, I mean, I love what they're doing. I think it's amazing.
Work. Flowers are beautiful, but flowers are work.
That's right, and not only that, but the great people we have now might not be people we have 10 years from now.
Sure, John. I love John Bilecki. He's he volunteers there. I don't know if you've ever met John.
Yes, I think I have.
I met him through the farmers market when we had the coffee shop, and I would go to the farmers market and sling coffee, and he would always be there with he did drawings and renderings of.
No, I don't think I've actually, but I know of him. But
he's one of the big volunteers uptown, and he tells you what flowers will do well here.
Right,
and
that's so important.
He's a retired I believe he's a doctor. He's a retired doctor.
Yeah,
and I actually just saw him yesterday. I went and got ice cream with the missus, and he showed up and it's, hey John, how you doing? I hadn't seen him in a while, and I usually wave when I see him picking flowers, and it's one of those things that, like,
did he
he's
marry?
not.
Not to go off topic, but
Sure.
did he marry a Dembowski?
We don't know.
I don't know either, because I think that might be what I might know him, because I had her for a teacher.
But, he's
But anyway,
not,
sorry.
But he's not getting younger.
Okay, right.
Like, you know.
That's right. That's like my husband. He's on Rebuilding Together. Okay, you familiar with Rebuilding?
Yeah, with
He's just like such a great group.
Jim Mahar's on that too, right? Or is he the Bonner Response?
No, he's Bonner Response.
Okay.
This is
Rebuilding.
a different group of people, and they're all older, and they're amazing men and women, but older. I'm talking like.
Are they through Community Action?
No, they're their own organization, and it kind of started out was Christmas in July, I think they named it.
And they were painting houses.
And they were painting houses, and like Cutco was involved, and there was a lot of businesses and corporations that got involved and just did the Blitz Day, and that's how my husband got involved, because he was with Cutco, and he would help them, supply them with moving all the ladders and getting the house set up for Cutco. Then he got on the board. So I guess my point is, wonderful, wonderful organization made up of very great, like, outstanding older men, basically doing things for older people the same age, building ramps, and it's like that's not sustainable. We need a new, fresh, and honestly,
and it goes in cycles, because it happens at all the social clubs around here too.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the Hibernians, and they do a lot to give back to the community.
Yeah.
But they were going through this big stint where, like, for 20 years it was the same dads.
Yeah.
Like, their kids are just getting out of high school, and they've kind of taken the reins over.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden they've got grandkids, and they're all, like, ready to go.
Yeah.
And, like, I run the kids' Christmas party now.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, it's my job to get Santa down there. It's my job to
gotta take over.
Exactly. And it's like, and there's, like, me and 5 other people my age. So it's like, it ain't gonna last for long if we don't start getting some young blood in there.
It's true.
So.
It's true, and you're right. It goes in cycles like that, and I'm sure that's going to happen with our downtown beautification. They do a great job, but again, you got to get the next generation involved. So we cannot worry about that stretch in that way.
And West State
it's
Street. Like I said, I don't have as close an eye on that one. Like, I don't remember plans. Like, I
think we will eventually. I think they. I mean,
they've done public presentations.
Yeah,
so it's just like South Union Street. The public presentations were there when I was on the council, and then they revamped it, and they did it again. They went with another engineer, and they did it again, and then they did it again, and I think they've done 2 different renderings in, like, the last 3 years, and now they've picked the last one, and it's like, now they're going with it. I can't tell you exactly what it looks like, because I've seen like 7 of them.
Right.
I know I've seen 1 or 2 of West State Street, but it's like.
Wait, do we have access to those things online or no?
I don't know. I mean,
that's the thing. You got to have these things for people to be able to look at.
I know they used to have renderings of stuff, like when they did, when they do a project, they used to, like, when North Union Street was being done, they had, like, on every hallway of the city building, even when I was just, Joe resident walking through, you could see what North Union Street was going to look like with all the roundabouts and just at least a blueprint.
Yes.
And, a nice colorful blueprint, not an actual, like, architectural one. But
right. Well, it would just be so nice to get to the point where everyone, and it's not everyone that complains about the roundabout, and there's lots of people that are happy with the way it looks. People from out of town just are amazed at the change. And I never thought I'd see this kind of change in our city. But, prior to this administration, that's when they got that ball rolling and it took off. And if that doesn't tell you that the state believes in our city, if that's not enough to tell you to start believing that maybe we can have a resurgence, I don't know what does, because that is a lot of money for one city, one small city of a relatively small population to get that kind of money.
Right.
End of story. And people can say that was our money, and yep, you're right, we paid into that, but we're getting it back. That's the point. We're getting it back, and we have to utilize it. We have to be successful with it. That's the thing. We're given these opportunities for a reason, and I definitely am honored to be the mayor, I mean, I look forward to that challenge more than anything. I would just love to get through all of this and just get to work.
Yeah.
I've been involved in so many things in the city quietly and never wanted to make a big deal. Even you didn't know that I was the one that headed up the squirrels, but it's like you took a great idea and tried to present it.
I was in college when I think the squirrels came out. So
well, I mean, I took a leap of faith that it would work, and I just really put myself out there. I had to start with the city because I had to get the okay for it, which at the begining of that gave the impression it was a city project, but in fact it was not.
There's a lot of things like that.
Yeah, and a couple headliners came out in the Times Herald, and it went, at the time people weren't happy. Crucci was the administration, things were going up, because of the issues of prior administrations causing whatever. It's bound to happen again, and is happening again. What can I say? You always, as a person leading anything, whether it's a board, whether it's a city, whether it's a country, your decisions today affect everything later down the road, like it or not. It's gonna, either a positive way or a negative way. Our forefathers had opinions about how they foresaw our future and tried to minimize or cover those, but then things pop up that you just don't realize. But at the end of the day, really, you set the tone maybe for forever. So you have to always be conscious of the fact that your decisions affect the future.
Sure.
I went to the city with this idea thinking that could be a generator of tourism, which in fact it did. And I did that with my husband's help. We made that happen, and it continues. So it's good. We have more squirrels coming out eventually.
Oh, do you?
So
Okay.
So it was a good thing, and I feel like that all these.
I'm still terrified by the McDonald's.
The
McDonald's one is horrifying.
New home for McDonald's one is actually going to go where probably everyone thought it should go at the beginning, which is McDonald's.
Okay.
And they're excited. The corporate office is so excited about it, and they want to make a big deal out of it, bringing it back down.
It's just kind of scary to see.
I know the white. I think it's just like clowns have a
scary appeal to them anyways, right?
Yeah.
Some little kids are scared by Santa.
Yeah, exactly. So but at the time, honestly, I felt very honored by the fact that the Meyers wanted to invest in that, and at the beginning was, trying to convince people that it will become a thing that people will actually enjoy, and here's the reason behind it. They go around
and collect them, and
so much
geotagging, right?
It was big, and it started like at the beginning with people putting pictures of it on social media, and then it got like big coverage, and I think in the end it did exactly what we wanted it to do and continues to do.
Right.
So to me, as just a private citizen doing such a big thing, to think I could do that on a bigger scale, like what could that mean for our city? What do I think is out of the box thinking that actually might end up being a really great thing? Those are the things I think about. Those are what my hopes are for our future. That's, as I talk to anyone, and yourself included, we might be that generation of people that are going to make a change that'll be lasting for many years,
Sure.
that could set us on course.
That's the Lewis Black adage, right?
Yeah.
Like, you want to drive some people somewhere? Build a big freaking thing.
That's right.
And that's not a direct quote with freaking, but
no. That's the idea. Build it and they will come.
Right. Yeah.
Market it correctly and they will come.
You have a big freaking thing museum and a big freaking thing gift shop.
There you go.
You get street vendors selling hot dogs for the big freaking thing.
That's right.
The Bob Ross burnt into the bun or whatever the big thing is.
Exactly right. And for example, I don't know if you saw online that the neighborhood school of dance now wants to literally, no pun intended, branch off and do, the neighborhood museum of play.
Really?
Okay, well, this is the
Like
reason
play
for
like
the
thespian
squirrels.
play?
No, for indoor
Recreation for children.
hands-on learning museum,
Okay.
like Strong,
Right.
like
Okay.
East Aurora did. Now is on the waterfront. So to bring this full circle, the squirrels, the fundraising from that was brought on because why can't we? My children were little. We were traveling all over to go to children's museums. Why can't Olean have this? This is not that difficult. I remember going to the East Aurora one when they were given in a corporation complex the entire floor. Fisher Price is it's home of Fisher Price. Fisher Price sponsored them. Tops or Wegmans, Tops, I believe, sponsored them for their grocery store. All these different companies were sponsoring these little play areas for kids. We went there frequently. Why can't Olean have that?
Right.
Well, money, right? Place to have it, and whatnot. Same time saw squirrels. I'm sorry, not squirrels. Mermaids in Virginia Beach, where my sister-in-law lives. These are awesome. How did this happen? Who did this? Lots of questions.
Sure.
Looked into it, found out it was a fundraiser, found out on a bigger scale that this is done all over. The cows in Chicago, cowboy boots in Texas. Olean, why can't we do it? And with the money, why couldn't we use that to start a children's museum? So here we are, full circle.
No, my desktop changed. It changed its background photo.
Oh,
and
scared
I was
you?
Did something die? Like,
oh, jeez.
The podcast end?
Oh,
no.
Oh.
And then, so.
No, just little diversion there. But no, the money. So the money is at Cattaraugus Region Community Foundation, Woodland and the City Fund. So that money has been sitting there and it's been gaining, and we use it from time to time for different things, for maintenance and whatnot. But the bottom line is I met with the person who's starting this process of doing the Children's Museum in the old neighborhood school of dance.
Because they're over the bridge on South Union.
Yes, in that Checky building, the old Checky News building, where they used to print.
Okay.
Okay,
Right over the bridge on the left-hand side before you go up York, right?
It's the perfect building. It's the perfect everything.
So where are they now? Did they bought a new
so
building?
they bought Christopher Columbus, and they're going to move the dance studio there.
I heard that they sold. Mm-hmm. I heard after Dave Ottakirk died, I remember, because I was good friends with Joey Dio, who passed away. And he was always trying to say, come on, Kev, we got to buy it. It'd be a great spot. And I'm like, Joe, it needs a roof, it needs this, it needs that.
Yeah.
And so he could never get me to buy it. But I heard that they had one of their last few shows and events and things like that, like before they finally closed down. I didn't know what was going to be there. But.
Yeah, so Brittany is her name, and she owns the neighborhood school of dance, and that's going to move to. They're going to have their new place at the Christopher Columbus, and then this building. She had a survey. She put a survey out. I saw it where they said, do you think that this indoor activity place for kids to go would be a good idea? And of course everyone's like, yeah, it'd be a great idea. I immediately jumped on that, and I was like, we've been waiting for this. This was our dream always, to have something like this in Olean. We have the money for Woodland in the City Fund that can give you the money to get this off the ground. So now she's doing just that, and she's going to have an architect come in, and they're going to evaluate the building and see what they can do and go from there and do like a capital project like any other museum. And what an asset. The research I did at the time to make the case for this, there are some cities that use that as an anchor attraction to bring families into the city, not just for one day, more than one day. Now, I know the other thing, the splash pad, people are like on the fence with that. Trust me when I say, these are the things that, although they're coming first, these are the things that attract people to a city, that builds a city, that grows a city, that increases the population, that has what it takes for people to want to live there. That's the vision of it. All these different things that we think are unnecessary will be very necessary, because how could you attract a family to live here if you don't have these things in place? We'll have them in place. Now it's up to us to draw the population in. And for me, the tech really is the way I would see we should go.
I'm a big you know, I would say, is it proponent?
Proponent of this idea
of ideas of, well, because here's the thing is, if you ever, like, they always did like small business day, right? Like support a small business, right? The chamber does them.
Sure.
A lot of people do them. The issue that I always had with it was, like, they wanted to support a small mom and pop shop to try to, because the big box chains are sending the corporate money elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's great, but why don't we do what the big box stores do? Like, it's hard to pull off a Cutco.
Right.
It's hard to, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's hard to create a Cutco from scratch, but it's easy for you to start a, you know, obviously sometimes you have to have the idea or the business in place, like the Eads wallpaper online.
Yeah.
But if everybody was doing an at-home business and sending their business out to draw money, and this is where their corporate money comes.
Yes.
That does a lot better than just telling the residents to not shop at Walmart or Home Depot and go to Worth W. Smith and Ole and Food Barn and all these other places. Like, that's great mentality, but you almost need to incentivize younger folks coming out of high school, like, hey, do you want to start a business? You can start something online. Do your research. Start something online.
Yeah,
and bring your money back to Ole.
I'm sure you have friends that moved on because they have a tech, their careers in tech. What are we doing here for that? Well, at the time, you know, obviously probably not enough. They're going to go somewhere else. And in some cases they start out working for a company and they start their own company. And all of those things can be done online. There are full remote jobs. And as a matter of fact, people are asking, can it be fully remote, and take the job based on that. I have seen it firsthand. So with that being said,
and cost of living here is
so low. Here's the thing. You can't expect a developer to come in and develop a whole area for us without some kind of guarantee that they will see people come in. Well, we have already proven, just by the Manny Hanny building and those apartments, how sought after people with higher earning potential or retirement and have the ability to pay will pay, in fact, $1,400
that's where the
a
stigmatism comes in, because you tell people, like, hey, listen, I want to be able to market to higher income earners, and then people instantly turn on you and go, are you discriminating against the poor?
No.
And it's like, no, I'm not discriminating against the poor, but there is a need in this market.
And here's the thing.
If there was a need for poor people to have food, guess what? You could make a business that does that.
Right.
See what I mean? Like,
yes. Here's the thing. It's just like the analogy when you're sitting in an airplane and they tell you, you have someone who needs assistance next to you, you put your oxygen mask on first, then you can help them. Right? And as hard as that is to think that way, because I am in fact that same way where I just want to help the person. But you have to have the resources.
Most of the time it's your child, right, that's next to you on this. You know, so
you have a little bit more
of an incentive than a stranger. But sure.
But it's the same mentality.
You don't want to pass out now. All of a sudden, you have two unconscious people.
That's right. If you're compromising yourself, how are you going to help others, right? So being a city, you're in the same boat. Like, you have to be financially secure to help others. We want to help others. We want to combat the homeless issue. I have great ideas about that. It takes money, obviously. Can't solely come from the city. In fact, should not solely come from the city. We have organizations that help the population that they, in fact, are helping, and they are maintaining their great success stories based on people that need these services. What we need to, together as a community, collectively try to handle these situations. We know people are not homeless by choice. They are homeless because there are other things that are happening in their life that is causing this. We have to tackle those issues first and foremost in order to get to the bottom of where they can successfully sustain living arrangements, okay? You can't just pour money on it and just decide that's going to be enough. There's got to be more to it. We're talking about people here, not a sewer pipe. So with that being said, we do have to, in fact, draw the people into our city that are higher income earners so that we can support all of these services that we desperately need to give to others that can't afford to give to themselves. So with that, if we stop trying to attract big companies, okay, and we try to invest in actually people, those are the people that are spending money. We can build a huge manufacturing facility, but if everyone working there lives somewhere else, lives in Pennsylvania, pays everything in Pennsylvania, what did we gain? We didn't gain anything.
Sure.
If you invest in the person that's actually spending, the person that actually is going to spend their money in the restaurants, the bars, the entertainment, they're the ones paying property tax. Why have we not addressed or even targeted that? Don't look at the big picture. Look at all the individuals that are comprising the backbone of what really pays for our services, our property taxes. So if you look at like Tulsa Remote, I don't know if you're familiar with that program. It started out as basically a, I don't want to say gift, but a donation from at least one organization that just gave them the money to incentivize people to move to Tulsa. They gave them $10,000 to either apply towards their rent for the year or to apply towards a mortgage, buying a home, with the stipulation that they actually live in the city of Tulsa and they work remote. And it's working. It has generated over $500 million since the inception of the program. So Tulsa had something great to offer to people in their 20s, 30s that could live anywhere. So they decide, hey, $10,000 it pays my rent. It gives me a down payment on a house. I'm going to live there and hopefully stay there. And that's our job, to attract people to live here, but not just live here, but to stay here and enjoy a great quality of life. So a program, something such as that, may end up being implemented along with, let's face it, I just watched this on TV the other day, have read about it numerous times. Warehouse facilities are in fact needed for technology, for systems, for
Like the
information servers.
Yeah.
Okay, we have water, we have cold temperatures. Those are the two key components for those kind of facilities. And they may not seem like, wow, what kind of manufacturing is that going to bring? No, that is not the point. The point is you have a huge warehouse that is not here because we've given away our property tax. They are here because we have elements that no one else has: cold air, water.
Right.
We do not need
Keep
to
their
give
service
them, we do not need to give them pilot.
Right.
Our pilot is our natural
Sounds like
resource.
you just found a sale for the Rocky Mayoral building down on what is it, South Clinton Street?
Which one are we talking about?
South Berry? What
the big
old-
warehouse?
Yeah, the big warehouse. Yeah.
Any of that?
Yeah, right.
Any of the
Just
tile
sitting there
plant?
doing nothing.
The tile plant.
Yeah.
What happens if we don't fulfill all the property in Dresser? What if someone wants to build on the brown fields? Big facility
Sure, 'cause if
that
you-
has no windows. You know what I mean? That's what they look like. There's no windows. It's just pure ventilation going on in there.
Right.
Some of them have to use
And
water
if the
tubes.
computer circuit boards leak, it's already on a brownfield.
Well,
Right.
I guess not that
It's not the
should be
goal,
a
but I
selling
mean,
point, but there's even some facilities that require water to run through the tubes,
Sure,
recycle.
sure. For heat transfer. Yeah.
Where are they getting the water from? We have water.
Yeah.
See what I mean? This is my thought. You know, you go back to the basics. What are your natural resources? We see this all over the world. Why are countries sought after? What's in the ground?
I grew up in a small farm town in Connecticut. When my dad moved from Olean to New Milford, the populations were reversed.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, Olean was at its peak of
Yeah.
like 28,000 people.
Yeah.
And he moved to New Milford at 12 to 14,000
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
And now when he had retired, he moved back to Olean, and the population had reversed.
Isn't that something?
It had reversed again.
Why? And that's so sad. You know,
It
it's
is.
like,
Well,
but we know why, right? I mean, corporations left, manufacturing's left, manufacturing left.
So what made New Milford boom, though, was the same thing that you're saying, that people come to the factory from Pennsylvania, where there is a lower minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
So they know that even just starting out at a minimum wage Burger King job in Olean is going to be better than Smethport,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the minimum wage is different. So they're
Right.
automatically just going to come here. But now they take our dollars and they go back to Pennsylvania. Like you
Right.
said, that's what happened in New Milford, was all these people could get a job in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
hop on a train,
Oh, sure.
45-minute commute, and so they could buy an old farmhouse.
Yes.
Beautiful old farmhouse, just like we have here in Olean.
Yeah.
We've got beautiful houses.
Yes.
Just need a little TLC.
Yep.
And you could buy that for almost nothing.
Yeah.
And then what happened was, as more people started doing that. So now all of a
Caught
sudden,
on like fire. Yeah.
and
Like,
then as more people started spending money,
yeah.
and restoring
Businesses-
theirs started popping up. Now you have a drywaller. You've got a guy that can help you
Absolutely.
fix up that farmhouse.
Yep.
Because you can't be working all the time and doing that. You're
Yep.
making good money, so now you can pay good money to have things done. And that's why, like, their entire population, all of a sudden the cheap farmhouse turned into a $300,000
Minimum, right?
minimum, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. My dad used to joke when I was a kid. He goes, I can go back to Olean and buy a house for $60,000.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need almost any work.
Right.
He goes, then the taxes are roughly the same as I'm paying here in New Milford.
Yep.
Because the cost of groceries are the same, right?
Yeah,
Like you still have the same overhead for your city as this farm town does.
Right.
It's all based on population
Right.
and mileage.
Right.
And so, but he goes, in New Milford, I have to buy, because the economy is booming.
Yeah.
I can buy a burnout garage for $100,000, and I'm still paying rent on the land.
I know.
But here, $300,000 gets you Louis Mignano's house.
Yeah, exactly.
Or used to, anyways.
Yeah, or you get an old home and you remodel it, and it's
you
like
still have $150,000.
Exactly. And how many
touch.
times have we all heard this from family members? My God, do you know how much that house would go for in San Francisco? Do you know how much? Yes, we know all this. That's what we need to capture. The people that want a beautiful home, that don't have to have their job in the same city, that their company is in California. They live in Olean, New York. Why are you living in Olean? Oh my gosh, have you seen it? It's absolutely beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
And
We
I can
raise our
buy
children. In 4 minutes, we can be to their school. In 4 minutes, we can be wherever store we need to be. Any of us that travel, to family members that have children outside of our area, it blows your mind. 2-hour commute between going to this game, going to that school. People don't, I'm telling you,
I have a
moving
cousin
forward.
who lives in California. My sister
yeah.
used to. Like, you try to go from where your house is to work, it might be a 2-hour commute.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a 2-hour commute, and it's like 4 miles.
Exactly. It's insane. And people know what quality of life should be. They want that. And people that can live anywhere, I guarantee you, with the right marketing and the fact that we have our focus on that, I feel like that would be, for us, very successful.
I think that the internet is going to be like the New York City is to
those outlying cities,
well, because right
little
now
towns.
we're the outlying farmhouses.
Yep, we are.
At a low bargain price.
But yet we have great services. We have a paid fire department. We have a great police department. We have all the components already. We
used to have a big community.
That's right. We have all the components. We've kept it going. We're improving. Look at all the money the state's pumping in. We have every reason to believe the quality of life here, bar none, will be the best, better than most. And I think we all need to feel that. We need to drive that home. We also, living here, have to understand that really it's better than what we think it is, and it can be much better. So, hi.
Dad,
Hi, Lennox.
can I get 10 minutes of TV?
It is 8:49. You have 10 minutes, and that is it. Not a minute over. Okay. All right. We have guests. Go put pants on.
It's all right. We have grandkids.
Shut the
This is
door.
mild.
Shut the door on your way out, Bubba.
And you know, you got it. I mean, we could continue. It is getting later. You know, I have a plan too for even the old homes, how we can attract people to come here, and some of these houses that go to, you know, they go for back taxes, and yet only on.
1 second.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Aw.
I have to.
You, well, of course,
I've
that's
got
a
to be
good.
I'm the warden.
That's all right. One person has to be, that's for sure. But no, I mean, even the homes. A lot of people ask, "What are we going to do about the blight?" I mean, that's a whole nother conversation I've already thought of. I've got a great idea.
I think the blight disappears when you get when people are incentivized. And when I say incentivized, my big issue is I'm a small government guy.
Okay.
I don't think the government needs to be doing a ton of incentivizing.
Right.
With government dollars, right? Like
Yep.
paying for people's rent here and there might be a good incentive to drag people in from other areas because you have the promotional base.
Right.
But I think like, hey, I want to incentivize somebody to start this business. I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't see how like stimulus money
Really works. Really works in the
Exactly. I
end.
think it has more of an inflationary negative effect.
Yeah.
But I think if you create incentive structures
Right.
that aren't so monetarily, like if you were to relax legislation on like homes, you know what I mean? Like sometimes like certain things are in place, right? Smoke detectors, carbon monoxide
Yeah.
detectors.
Yeah.
Those things are important for human
safety,
right?
right.
But I think that like, you know, when you start getting down those HOA paths where zoning is like so cumbersome,
Right.
or those people trying to rebuild in California and now they have to get a building permit. It's going to take them 5 to 10 years to get a building permit to rebuild their home.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think if you release some of the restrictions,
Right.
I think that in and of itself creates a new incentive structure. Wow, I can take 10 grand and fix that house up. And I don't have half the headache I used to have.
Right.
Or I could have had.
So let me run this past you. If you want to continue talking,
Sure.
I'll try to.
We'll wrap up in about 10 minutes when I have to go steal his TV back.
Okay. All right. We'll try to consolidate this idea. So in the same way that we apply for a grant to the state, we give them a project that we want to do.
Right.
And they look at it and say, is this viable? Is this something they can do? Is this something we want to put our money towards? So instead of sending these homes that are going for foreclosure, for auction, and then when they auction them off, I don't know for sure if the city actually in fact gets anything back for that particular process.
So the county makes, the city could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Salamanca does it.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is if you're the one to foreclose, you have to make the other two entities whole.
Mm-hmm.
So the school, the county, and the city are the three. So if you're the one to foreclose, you have to make the other two whole. And that's the, like, so what happens is every year the county does it for us. We don't foreclose. And so the county makes us and the school district whole for the unpaid taxes. They pay us, and then that's why if you don't pay your city or school taxes, they roll to your county bill in their separate line items. So, and then that's how the county just kind of encumbers it every year. Then when you're, whatever the process is, it used to be 3 years behind, now it's 2 years, which is 2 years delinquent. So like, if you didn't pay your property taxes by the 31st, which was Monday, if you didn't pay your taxes and you owed 2024, your 2025s just became delinquent because it was the last day to pay them before they're late.
Okay.
So now you're 2 months. So now anybody who still owed 2024 has to pay both years, and the county will start their foreclosure process on your home. So the county does it.
Okay, so if let's just say they do that process and nothing ever really comes of that house. It doesn't improve. The person who bought it didn't have the money to improve it. They
just saw it was cheap.
They saw it was cheap. They took a chance. They bought it, and it just stayed that way. And
right,
it
because
never.
A lot of people have the money to. And I've seen the mentality. I've had it when I was first starting out. If you got 10 grand in your pocket, you could go to the tax auction and spend 10, and you're like, well,
I'll do something with it.
But then the filing fees come up.
Yeah, it just doesn't really work. Does it really take care of the issues? Or I guess what I'm saying is what benefit do we finally get back?
I could probably give you a good example because most people drop the habit, right? They say,
I can't do
that
this anymore.
I tried it. I didn't have the money to fix that house. I already have my own home.
Yep.
And then they sell it, or they just let it go to taxes, and they're done.
And then we're not any better off.
We're not any better
back
off.
in square one.
So
Or
I can give you an example of one that I did. I bought that church by the city building.
yeah.
And I bought it for $10,000.
Yeah.
And I bought it because I thought it was a great deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have any money to put into it. But I stayed in the game.
Right.
And because I stayed in the game, I then was able to have money to, and I also was able to try to take my own time and invest in it. So I put $19,000 into that roof that's on it.
Yeah.
I've got $5,000 to $7,000 into the outside of the painting of the place.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
even though the building isn't doing
You
anything,
saved it, but
it's
you
still,
saved it.
Right, exactly. It's not
Saved
falling
it.
in on
Right,
itself.
right.
It's not vibrant, and I still don't have a ton of money to dump into it.
Right.
But I have money to keep paying the taxes.
Right.
I have enough money to keep paying the water minimums.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, like, but my situation is rare because I'm kind of a unique individual where I'm not going to give up on something.
Right.
Where other people are just like, nope, I tried rentals, screw it. The
headache of it wasn't worth it.
Exactly.
I don't have enough
money. The patients
money
are running the asylum. I'm done with tenants. And they just leave, and they package it up. Or there's like 4 or 5 properties that a guy just went to jail because of the condition of his properties. Like, they're actually starting. He's the first one in our area to actually go to jail for.
Yes, I heard about this, and like the neighbors are like, let's try to, take back the neighborhood, everybody buy the cheaper homes, and that is a great idea because the right people have their heart in it, and hopefully will do something with it. So that kind of is the thought process behind. Obviously, this would have to be, vetted with the county. It would have to be an agreement. Instead of going through this process, because we're trying to build our population back, because we're trying to save homes, we're trying to save neighborhoods, we're trying to improve the quality of life, it may end up to the county or the school tax or us even, may not be that fast, instant payback of what's owed. However, what if we were to do similar to, let's say, what we do when we ask for money for projects from the state, but what if we have not so, I hate to use this phrase because it's usually connected to nonprofit, but a land trust, okay? A land trust.
Is it like the land bank?
Okay, sort of like where a city recognizes that land is critical part of their landscape. They actually are the owners of the land, but then they sell the land off in parcels to people, probably at a very low rate, so that it will be developed or something.
And it continues to stay on the tax rolls,
You're trying to improve the quality of the community by protecting it.
So
okay,
this is
a good word to put.
So land bank, what you're talking about is actually what the county does. The county started a land bank.
Right.
And so there's always a constant negotiation that can be had with the land bank. The land bank is there to help.
Right.
It's usually headed up by a couple of the county legislators, and I believe one of the main players in it is the county treasurer, who is always willing to usually work with the city and other municipalities, but they have the whole county to cover.
Right.
So out of certain properties, they'll take ones that are, if I remember correctly, they can only tear down 40% of the properties in their inventory, and they have to rehab 60%. And so what they ran into an issue is that they're a non-for-profit entity that's operated by a government entity.
Right.
So they don't have to pay prevailing wage and all these other things, but the people that know that they're a government entity, they still pay a high dollar to get things done because they're not Joe Homeowner,
right,
or Kevin with a hammer going to fix a rental.
Yeah.
They don't get any, there's no cost savings to the land bank other than they can do certain things. They can get asbestos tests done. They don't have to go through a big, huge procurement process. They can have houses torn down way cheaper than the city can or the county can.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they'll put the property in a bank that they know just has to be demolished. And they'll make that call at the county level. They'll say, this house in Little Valley, this house in Salamanca is beyond
it's
repair.
Dilapidated.
Right. And they'll talk with local code enforcement and they'll say, hey, listen, this house, it's missing a floor.
Right, no, really.
It's just a hollow shell. Hollow shells are easy to build. It's all the other stuff. It's all the bringing it all together is the expensive part.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they found was they started making deals like the city was doing about 5 years ago, 7 years ago. The city was taking properties and said, listen, there was a couple on West Sullivan Street. They said, we want this rental gone.
Mm-hmm.
We'll sell it to you for $1.
Mm-hmm.
You tear it down, though, and you have a year to do it.
Yeah.
I think they did it with Shawley.
Mm-hmm.
He bought a couple properties down behind his house, and he demolished them, or his store.
Mm-hmm.
It happened with the now late Don Shola.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
I was on the council. He bought that blue monster next to his house. The city tore it down, or they took. They reimbursed the city to tear it down.
Right.
And
right.
even though it would have cost them less money to do, I don't know why, but they're like, what?
Let's just get rid of the
But
problem, right?
Exactly. Next to AKT Combatives over on North Union Street.
Yeah.
The county land bank, that was one of the most recent ones. They were going to demolish it.
Yeah.
A contractor came to them with a plan.
Mm-hmm.
He put a new roof on it, new electrical services installed. There's all new windows. That in process now, which doesn't cost the land bank any money.
Yeah.
And it sparks private investment. I think stuff like that.
Yeah,
is a very good incentive program.
we it's like you said, little bits and pieces it's being done, but what if we do it on a bigger scale, but
because
we
you also don't have a loss either. So you got to think about it this way. You're losing the taxes that you could have been reimbursed for at the auction.
Right.
But you're now handing it to somebody for $1.
Yeah.
Or $1,000. You buy this land.
Right.
That you can now rehab.
Right.
So now you're sparking them to invest their own money into it. And
now,
when it goes back on the tax rolls, and if they fail,
right,
you take it back, and now you have a partially remodeled house,
exactly.
or it's at least in the same condition it was when you left it.
Okay, exactly. So there you go. That's exactly my thought. However, on a bit more targeted effort for us as a city and marketing it to people outside of the city.
Sure.
We all know this. There are people, like you said, that just keep watching for whatever comes up on auction. But no, I think what we need to do is build on that as a city and give a package, really, to people that if they propose to us what they will do with that particular building or that house or whatever, right. If they are chosen. And again, this would all have to be worked out how legally you'll do it. If they are the chosen homeowner to do this, that they guarantee that they have money secured to remodel it, that they're actually just given the property, free and clear, with the understanding it has to be brought up to exactly or close to the amount of money they're going to spend on rehabbing it within 2 years, and they actually completed the home, the renovation, and we get it back on the tax rolls. But more importantly, we get this street back to what it should be.
Sure.
With older homes, it should be saved, and give people the opportunity to invest in it themselves. With
skin in the game.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes. And we'd have to actually have it so that we have.
So we really don't have a PR. Like, the city itself doesn't really have a PR wing.
Right.
Like, they have press releases, that'll come either out of the mayor's office, out of the DPW for construction work.
Yeah.
Community development does a lot of that. But I know, like,
we have to improve that.
Right. I don't think community development has the staff. Like,
no,
if it
they
was
don't.
If it was.
No.
If you were to try to, like, categorize where would you have PR?
Yeah. No.
Then I would probably say that would be the office, but I don't think you have the staff for it.
No. Some of these things just absolutely have to be contracted.
Sure, and I think we tried to do that with the chamber, if I remember correctly.
The chamber, we had an agreement, and then that agreement fell off the map, and
the county has, like, a tourist division, I hear that they're hit or miss.
Right. So, something like that, rather than pulling a person or a department under our payroll and everything, you just have to contract it out. And the bottom line is the best price, the best negotiation you have is competition. And there's a lot of competition for that. But here's the bottom line.
Especially if you let people know about the deal.
Yeah,
if there's a deal, I don't...
each thing needs its own promotion, and each thing needs to be fully thought out and have the program in place. Why can't we don't have to do it exactly, I would think, like the way the county is doing it. We're smaller scale, but we know what we need and we know what needs to be done. We just have to have that program put in place that hopefully will be sustaining forever. Like forever that we're here, we're always going to have this issue of houses going into disrepair. And here's another thing, and I know this was addressed at one point, but really, how many are there? People that had family or parents that lived here that passed away. They live somewhere else. They don't want to deal with whatever it is that they have to deal with that home. It gets in bad repair. It's ignored. They keep paying us the taxes, so therefore we're all right with it. But at the end of the day, it really needs to be saved. What if you give them the option to say, give it to the city for this program? If you're already out the money, no one's living in this house, you're paying the taxes, why not just let us have it?
Right.
Give it to another family that will invest in it and live in it. And I can't imagine, unless someone is really...
That's how we got this house.
Right.
The gentleman passed away.
Yeah.
They tried to list it real high. I happened to mow lawns when I was a kid for her mother.
Oh,
and this was her ex-husband's house. And she was like, are you looking for a house? And I'm like, yeah, right now I'm living in an apartment at my coffee shop building with my girlfriend. And we're looking to start a family and grow. She's, I raised my girls in that house.
There you go.
And that's we got this massive house for $23,500.
Exactly.
I need a lot of work. Still does.
But you just want to, at the end of the day, if someone is financially set and the parents left them a house and they don't need the house and they don't want the hassle, all right, we'll take it. Let us try to give a home to the next family that gives us a great proposal of what they're going to do to it. They went to the bank. They got the finances set for it. They know what they're getting into. They have 2 years to do it. Let them go at it.
Right.
And then eventually we get back tenfold in property tax, and not just that, population.
Right. So,
and not just our population. We draw from outside.
Right.
And how many people, like you said, live in a different state, city, or whatever their situation is, and say, God, I've got $150,000, which will not buy me any house in this area.
Or you can go to a bank and get 150, but what is that going to do? That pays for a couple of years of your rent.
Right, but how about you look at a home like this home or any home that it's not in the greatest shape, but $150,000 will do an immense amount of work on a house and get it exactly the way we want it. Our kitchen is exactly the way we want it.
There was a house that burnt down nearby, and I spent probably 5 to 10 hours of my free time helping these people over the course of a few weeks, because they were like, well, can we salvage the house? And I was like,
well, how do we do that?
Not really. Here's your game plan. Your best bet is to demolish the house. I would not rebuild.
Yeah.
You can take that money and go to the tax auction and buy 2 or 3 properties, fix them up, and now you have 3 properties that you have.
Yeah.
Or you can go buy something at that price that you don't have to put a ton of work into. Probably less work than you had to put into this house.
Yeah. You know what was shocking to me that we take for granted? When we were trying to find a home for my dad that was all one level, moving from the house he was at, which is hard, which is another thing we need to address.
Tiny homes?
Something. But
we've been doing a kick on the channel about tiny homes because they've been popping up, and it spurred my interest because I like building, and
they're fun. I mean, and they make sense. And right now they are the thing to do. Generates a good amount of income, especially if you Airbnb it. But what I was so shocked.
And for the city, bed tax.
Yeah, there you go. The thing that was so shocking to me when we were looking at a modular, my dad, he was adamant he wanted a basement, and we all said to him, Dad, less stairs, you don't really need a basement, you could just build it on a patio cement. He goes, I will not have a house without a basement. I
I'm
don't
with him.
care. I want a basement. So we're like, okay, well,
I'm
how
gonna
much?
be your dad someday.
Yeah,
I'm just
I
gonna
mean,
be an old crotchety man just going.
set in his ways. Like
I need to have a basement. I want to be able to reach all my pipes. I don't want anything below me.
Yeah,
Like,
he's like that. There's just no way I'm not having.
it irks me that my sewer pipe is inside a concrete floor in the basement.
Yeah, he wanted.
I want it along the wall so I can work on it. If it's got a leak, I can see it. If it's got a,
That's where he's coming from. He
I totally
you know,
get it.
all his rentals that he owned, he did, and all of us, to my mother's, dismay, the rest of it, he did all the work up until, well, he's going to be 85 this month. So right up till now, has always done all the work on all his houses, except for, electrician, and he'd have a plumber come in. Other than that, everything him. So anyway, we said, all right, well, let's look at a modular. How much is it to build a basement? Can't be that much. $30,000.
Oh, minimum.
Just for a basement. So if you think to yourself, all of our homes,
plans to engineer the walls now. Back in the day, you could just build them up.
Yeah.
But anything that's over 8 feet, you need structural stamp plans to retain it. It's
right.
A retaining wall.
It was a big deal, and that's if you wanted a normal one.
That watch the show are going to be like, that's only if it's a retaining wall.
Yeah.
It's not self-supported by three other walls.
But some municipalities require that you have that. They won't let you just do a crawl space type basement underneath to get to your pipes and stuff. They want it, like what you said, reinforced, and it's a certain height and all that.
Yeah, no, the building code is
pretty strict with that.
And the ICC, so it's the International Code Council, so they're the generally internationally accepted code. Mm-hmm. Almost every single state in the nation accepts that, and then they have their own little critiques. Mm-hmm. So like New York State adopts it, and then any changes they make to the ICC, they have in appendixes.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Okay, I found the code I'm looking for. Let me double check the appendix under that section to make sure New York State doesn't have a change, and depending on which book if you buy a book, it'll tell you like see appendix whatever for New York State, and like so if you buy one specific for for the most part, if you take that ICC knowledge, you can go pretty much anywhere. The same rules apply. You don't bore through the center. You can't take huge holes out of support beams and just all the little safety issues.
Yeah.
Mechanical gas works the same here that it does other places.
Yeah.
I mean, well, elevation adjusts to it, but
right. Yeah, but that just blew my mind that it would cost that much just to add the basement. So you think about the fact that even if someone was to like rebuild off the foundation, but yet they were given that property to be able to do that.
Well, yeah,
like
the basement,
that takes...
basement costs $30,000. I could say you could shell up a house pretty quick and pretty inexpensive. Like for $40,000 you could build a whole new outside of a house because it's only lumber.
Yeah,
you don't have to bring in the excavator. You don't have to pour the footers because you have all that with the basement.
Right, and you hope that any home that's worth saving, the shell will be okay, or if you do have to repair it,
unless it's going through a fire, right? Like it's some extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, but you just have to think about the people that we're trying to draw here, and and with that comes, I think about when our country was first founded, and you had certain, everyone had their little part of how they made things great, and like. We were talking about or like the Irish were great contractors, and like they were needed for all the building, and like in our communities you have like Amish. The Amish are great builders, and it just inherently happens that way. But wouldn't it be
when you
great?
See these crews go around? So like there's right now like in the current construction makeup, right? We do have the Amish still.
Yeah.
There's a group of guys from Mexico that are going around doing roofing.
Exactly.
And they're relatively inexpensive. Now, when I lived in Connecticut, my dad had friends that would develop properties, and they would always bring in this one crew of Ecuadorians.
Yes.
And they're really good at masonry and foundation work.
And that's the thing, and we're seeing that. I think a lot of people aren't aware of that happening, but that in fact is happening. Wouldn't it be great if we had not just people coming in to help us, but people here, actually their contract businesses expand because we have this resurgence of let's
people
take
trying
these
to renovate their homes.
and exactly, we need to focus more on that, not just let that be the county issue. That should be our issue. We should have a handle in who's buying our houses here.
As our
I
economy
don't like
grows.
I don't like the fact that just anybody can buy these very cheap homes, because we see what's happening. They buy them, they don't put the money in them, they are becoming in worse shape because they're allowing the wrong people to live in there and use them for illegal reasons.
Sure.
That is what's going on. I'm seeing it. So
Right.
we have got to start somewhere with that.
Or they
And
don't care, right?
They don't
there's
care.
There's a certain queen in this area that owns a bunch of rentals.
Just can't do this anymore.
She just if the cash is coming in, she doesn't care. If it's
Right.
coming from the county,
Yes.
it's coming from wherever.
Yes.
She doesn't follow up on her tenants. Which, I mean, listen, you're renting my property, go live your life how you want. And this is where I struggle with that same thing. I would love to say, hey, we need to restrict certain people from buying places if they don't have the right intent. But then my gut tells me, like, that's not a free market, Kevin.
Okay,
and so
but
that's why I fight with myself
here's
sometimes.
the thing. But I understand. I feel that same way. But also, it is up to us to protect low income people with low income. Okay, because I think what's happening here. I know what's happening. If that is the avenue in which they have to go, certain homes that are owned by certain landlords because of their low income status, that is not fair to the people that live in those homes. We have to protect them, okay, from what is happening, because it is all well and good that our tax money is helping support their rent, but it's going to the wrong people. And in the end, who is suffering the most, not
Because
just the
those
street,
people
it's the
don't pick
people
up-
who live there.
Those people don't pick up they
And-
don't maintain their houses as they should, especially if they're
They-
getting top dollar.
Right. And what is happening is when there's a violation, instead of fixing the violation, the tenants are then uprooted and moved to another home. That's what's happening. I mean, that is a practice that's being used. That is not right. Because in the end, really, and it's not discriminating and saying we don't want those people. What it is they're taking advantage of people that are low income and then taking advantage. Yes, and they're taking advantage of everyone. They're taking advantage of the people who are maintaining their homes on the street. They're taking advantage of the people that are living in the home that have no other option, that have no other resource.
I think this is how I can get past that tummy ache that I'm given by excluding somebody with a bad track record from buying rental properties, because it's free market. I don't want to say that I don't care who you are, you get to buy that house, because guess what? Dollars spend the same. But I think if you disincentivize people, actions have consequences, right? Like, it's a free market, sure, I can buy a house, but then if I go down the road and shoot somebody, I still go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
If I put somebody in that house and they cook like a candle, like, I should hold some responsibility, especially if I was made aware of it, right? And actually, I did a podcast not too long ago about real estate investing and how there's this certain landlord mentality with some landlords that you can just ignore the problem until, like, well, it can't be that big of a deal. Well, and they almost get just to the point of saying, well, if somebody else dies, it's not me, right? Like, it's like, well, that selfish mentality, that irks me, and I'm a real libertarian kind of guy. So, like, I don't like all the rules with building a home.
Right.
I understand
know.
certain ones and why they exist. I accept all of them because they're currently law. But, like, I definitely, if we had to throw out some restrictions, I would still be like, okay, well, I don't think we should get rid of smoke detectors, carbon monoxide, certain fire safety issues, things like that. So.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. Oh, he's so. That's so good. He monitored himself, didn't he?
Yes. He was close, though. It was like 30 minutes.
Well, anyway, I just think I have not, that for sure is a top priority, as well as everything else, the budget.
Running for mayor it's a tall order.
It's all encompassing. I think that's why you get 4 years, because in 4 years you can get a lot done. You can't get it all done in the first year. But you definitely can
The first year is definitely like tutorial.
Yes. Yes.
If not
Yes.
into the, I would almost surmise you almost need 2 terms to win or to
get
you.
to get accomplished. And I think if you're effective and you're doing what you're supposed to do the first 4 years and you decide you want to keep doing it, that people should realize and understand that maybe another 4 is needed, and that's exactly how you get reelected, because you have done something with your 4
Sure.
years. You've made a difference. You've made an impact. You've stuck to your convictions. You followed through with the things that you want to do and accomplish, and you do that until you've exhausted every resource. You've opened every door. You've done every due diligence. And if you've tried to do your best and it still didn't work, no one can fault you for that. But the worst is when you don't even try and you aren't even aware and you're unplugged and you're the type of person that gets something in your mind and you can't be persuaded any other way other than what you think is right, and you waste needless energy on that, and you're not listening to people around you. You're not looking for advice. You want to do it your way. Those are all detriments as far as I'm concerned if you really want to be an effective leader. I think you have to listen to other people. You have to listen to the people. And I think that is the way a lot feel at this point. Like they want to be heard. You know, I would say that within the first 6 months, I would definitely have town hall meetings every month. Not to come to me, well, yes, I want to hear your complaints, but let's hear your great ideas. Like come to me and tell me what you see in your street that bothers you.
I was going to say, because we used to call the alderman, like, there was the complaint department, because that's all we ever got, right? Because most of our codes and everything are complaint-based system.
Right.
So
right.
I guess a reimagining of what the divisions are, right? It's not a complain to the mayor, complain to the alderman, complain to this person or that person, complain about this. Maybe it's I noticed this, so I think Vernon brings this up quite often, actually, is, yeah, you can bring problems to me, but if you can, try to bring solutions, and if you can kind of just
work through them,
just like allow people to kind of even think that they can also come up with their own solutions.
Yeah, I mean, like as a person living in this city my whole life, I understand the process of going up to the city building and saying and voicing your complaints and wanting to be heard and then not getting a response, because that's how we do it, and it's frustrating, and with that frustration comes anger, and then when you don't get any resolve, it gets even worse. And like, I'm not quite sure why we have never had just
here's
a meeting.
Here's a minor change that just came to me is if somebody's coming up for public comment, they write down on a ledger their name, email, and phone number. So, and then what their concern is before they come up. Right, so like, hey, I'm up next. You come up and you write your name on the thing.
Yeah.
And so this way, once you've spoken your concern, maybe that gets scanned in, and all the aldermen and the mayor and any related divisions can review it and reach out. Like,
absolutely. It's a matter of communicating back and forth.
Like an alderman could reach out to Glen Wall, the mayor could reach out to Glen Wall, or maybe the division that's related could get forwarded that from the mayor's office to Brad, just because we knew that that the sewer division, right? Like that's where he's trying to get answers from, right? So, and maybe that supervisor passes it down and says, "Listen, I think you're the best one to answer this particular question."
Right. That's right.
But this way, you're at least getting answers, so people don't feel like they're going unheard.
I mean, I feel like if someone is literally taking time out of their evening to come up and tell you that there's an issue with whatever that is, okay, it needs to be addressed, and I would love to think that people get back to the issues that are at the top, but I don't know as if that always happens. But there is nothing better than being able to sit with a person and hear their concerns and be able to talk back to them and say, I understand. And just like what we're doing, I have this piece of knowledge I can offer you that might help. and then you offer something back to me, and we both walk away feeling good, like we're understood.
Right.
And that is not.
And even if
when
there
do
is
we
resistance, because I remember screaming at people, them screaming at me.
Yeah.
And then you like come back the next night, because we had like 4 days in straight budget meetings.
Yeah.
You come back the next day and it was like nothing ever happened. But
Yeah.
it was just healthy human emotion to get out there.
Yeah.
And you also can't feel like you passed the buck either
Right.
on anything, because you just had that connection, whether it was a yelling match or it was a sincere conversation.
Yeah. And I mean, I have never in my entire life ever seen a mayor walk down my street. Not once. And why is that? Like, why are we not seeing that ever happen? Why is it so important to do that while we campaign, but yet you never do that throughout the year? I'm not saying that a mayor should have to do that, canvass every neighborhood, but how about you open up your door one day a month where you let people come in? I mean, I know this is insane, but I'm going to just say it. It's like, also, we all grew up in families where eating, and that was part of like communicating and being able to talk to your family on Sunday, and like that's the time when you're going to be able to talk to that person, and you're enjoying like your day together or whatever, and eating. Like, these things can happen if you have a mayor who understands that that's helpful, and that builds a community. I feel, out of all these years I've lived here, that the community feels so much more divided than ever before. We at least all cared about things, and we all tried to pull together, and we all did events together, and we looked forward to things together. And I feel like there's a few things that we've hung on to, but the majority of the things that we were all accustomed to when we were younger just don't seem to be there anymore. And I want us to feel like we can all disagree about certain things. And I, as a serving on the board that I serve, as I learned, we talked about the Sholas, and Janine Shola was the president when I got on the board. I learned so much from her, and most of it was just being a good listener. So, as I lead that board, I also try to do the same thing, be a good listener and understand what the person wants, needs, or their opinion. And I think that's healthy. And honestly, the worst for me as a board president is to talk about something and then have silence afterwards with no one saying anything. And you say, all right, well, I guess we're going to move on to the next thing. I would much rather have someone talk to me about their disagreements or what they think we should do instead, and be very strong about their feelings. I think that's what builds
people
a better...
tiptoe around the issue.
Yeah, it builds...
So if you know that two people butt heads on something, I'm always the guy that brings up the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. This guy doesn't like this guy likes it. I'm somewhere in the middle, and I'll just talk about it. Like, well, you can't do that because he doesn't like that, and then just kind of I add a little levity, and it opens people up a little bit.
It sure does, and that back and forth communication is crucial. And no one person should just have the say, or no one person should be the only one you can talk to, and then you get like the silent treatment or whatever. That just builds frustration. So for me, if I was mayor, at least I would commit for the first 6 months to do that open meeting. Town hall, especially at this point, leads people to believe that one person standing up with the mic and everyone gets to stand up and say their view. No, how about just a community coming together, knowing the mayor is there, knowing that maybe whatever alder person can make it to that meeting will make it, and if they can't, they can't. We're not hinging the whole meeting on that one. That kind of thing. Just to hear
that's why
issues.
I think they don't do the back and forth.
Yeah. Because
they have other business to take care of, and even with giving everybody 5 minutes and having a long stream of people at certain meetings, there's most of the time through the year it's dead silence. It's just anybody, closed. But then there's sometimes the year you're right in the middle of budget season, and the meeting's going 3.5 hours,
Yeah.
and you haven't even touched the budget stuff yet.
Right.
And so it's like, I understand both sides. Well, you're there for the people, and you have that mentality. You're there for the people. It's like, yeah, but not till 2:00 in the morning.
Right.
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 There are limits, and so I do like the idea of having a town hall where you're providing people that back and forth, and I would set a limit on the total aggregate time.
We have a community this is a community center. It has a kitchen. There's no reason to believe we couldn't do something while we're all talking. Like, it doesn't have to be. I feel a lot of times people come up to that
it's
mic.
a commercial kitchen, so you could have a local restaurant come in.
Whatever. We could bake cookies. We could have a recipe that we all know we're going to be making, and while we're doing that, we talk. I know that sounds like, oh wow, they have such a sunshine, and no, it's really not about trying to be all the sunshine and light. It's really about trying to build the community and letting people have a voice and not feel the anxiety. I mean, you and I, public speaking's fine. But you know what? That is not easy for people to get up at that podium and speak. I mean, when I was younger, I could do it, but man, it would cause me a lot of anxiety. What comes from anxiety? Sometimes anger. So you're already setting people up for a bad situation when they already have something bothering them. So it needs to be done different. Obviously, as a mayor, your door is always open during the day, but, I
think having some PR, though, so you don't have families coming up thinking that we're poisoning the actual water supply. There were a couple people at the comment section that didn't understand the difference between sewage being discharged in the water and what we're pumping to people's houses.
Yeah.
And we more than meet the expectation of the state and the federal government for water sanitation.
Right.
And so it's one of those we're actually probably one of the best in this area. And so it's if not the best.
Yeah.
And so it's our water isn't like Aaron Brockovich. We're not selling you electric plant water. It's not coming off the turbines at the nuclear plant.
Right. I think the thing too, I think I know what you're speaking of, and I think it was more like the chlorine being an issue, which, we do smell that chlorine.
Sure.
What the concentrate is on after a stormy day, I don't know what the bacteria level gets to that they have to add more chlorine, but it's an uneasy feeling to smell it when you first run the tap. And then,
I know they have minimum standards with residuals too. So there's I know that there's you'll constantly see those people coming around the city. So if you ever see a water van, they're going facility to facility, I know they'll come out and test people's water at their home, let you know what the levels are, residual, just to make sure you don't have a problem.
Right.
So there is that, but most of it's, like I said, there's no PR on that. Most people don't know that.
Right.
They can do that unless they call and say, I got a gripe. And,
But I feel like in the last 10 years, communication's been lacking as far as communication on a lot of things. We used to get the water report every year, right? We're not getting a water report per se anymore in the mail.
For your home in particular?
Yeah, just the whole city. What our water level, what's in the water. We used to get that.
Really? I don't remember ever getting that.
We did. We used to get it. Yeah. Yes, we used to get it. I wasn't quite sure what I was looking at, but my dad definitely did, and we did used to get that. But regardless, I just feel, I felt like we didn't have any communication from the top during COVID. That was a very uneasy time for a lot of people. Things were shutting down. Me as a business owner in a restaurant.
My phone was ringing off the hook.
What, with people calling you?
And just asking questions. And
why? There's nothing coming from the top at all.
Well, because I was answering questions, so I
mean from the top, the mayor's office. Hey, this is what we have to follow. This is what we think's going to happen. I mean, I did not recognize any. And I was online quite a bit, obviously, at the time, get any direction. As a business owner of two businesses, one of them being a restaurant, I never had the mayor come in and say to me, "You doing okay? Everything all right? I know this is really cutting down on a lot of things for you. I understand you're a new business." anything we can do for you. I don't even know what we can do, but we will try, and just know that we realize this is a huge problem for restaurants. I got nothing. And that was upsetting to me. And I didn't make a big deal out of it, and I didn't get up and complain. But I felt that, and I thought, geez, if I feel that, everybody else has got to be feeling that. Where is our leadership in a time of crisis? This made a huge impact on me and my business and everything I thought I had for my future. And I got
COVID killed our coffee shop. I mean, we never made any money on it. It was always a break-even venture we ran it for 5 years.
Yeah,
it was a break-even venture, and I kept the health permit running.
Yeah.
Even when the restaurant was closed.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was like, you know what, maybe this will pan out, and then it was like somebody else wanted to come and rent the space. I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I've given it my experience. Here's 5 years of running here's running a coffee shop, slinging sandwiches.
Yeah. No, I mean, the thing is that was a detrimental time for all restaurants. You're gonna either float or you're gonna sink. Many sunk. I didn't have to sink. I mean, our business was still, when we reopened and the capacity started coming up, it got better. We had takeout and all that. But my point is, that's lacking. Like, as a business owner, I realize what a business faces if something like that happens. Sure. And I had as a matter of fact, there were a couple things that happened that really just were from the city, that really even put the nail in the coffin as far as I'm concerned, as far as how I felt they communicated to all of us. Let's just put it this way. I got a call when something needed to be addressed that was against code right in the middle of that crisis. They had to do with our sidewalk in the winter. And that would have meant that I had to pay somebody to come and detach something that supposedly was an issue for the plow that had to cross the street to just plow the walkway across the street. It wasn't even a matter of our sidewalk. It was needed to get around the awning. That was the only call I got during all of COVID. Was a complaint, and that if I wasn't in compliance, that I was going to hear from the city lawyer. That's what I got.
I got that when I was an alderman.
Well,
when I put in the sidewalk cafe, I said, I got to core drill this. Where would you like, where do you want me to put them? And the DPW director at the time told me
5 feet of the building, and you're all right? Well, stay within 5 feet of your building.
So mine is the subway.
Oh, okay.
So there's a
sidewalk. Okay.
And he goes, if you're having a sidewalk cafe, you don't need the bollards, is what DPW told me. Mm-hmm. And codes didn't weigh in on it. Mm-hmm. And DPW said you're doing the city a favor when you're pouring this concrete pad because the curb doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And it's the city's responsibility to put the curb in. Mm-hmm. And he's like, you'd be doing the city a favor if you drilled and tapped into the existing curb, come up with rebar, and pour like a monolithic pad. So it's at least 4 inches thick, and it's real thick right by the curb. Yeah. And then he goes, when you're done, I would drill holes and have removable posts. Or no, he didn't even want removable posts. He wanted me to put them right in the concrete, and that's what we did. Mm-hmm. We mounted them right into the concrete. Mm-hmm. There were galvanized pipes coming up, and he goes, this way, if you ever get you're not really requiring them, but he goes, but if you ever got a liquor permit, beer and wine, whatever, you need to have it protected. Yeah. And so he goes, just make them permanent, because in the wintertime, my plow trucks are going to see them, and they won't hit your curb. And because if they hit your curb, it's going to crack it. Yeah. And what will happen is, it's one thing if it cracks the curb, because the city has to replace it whenever they get around to it. Yeah. But if it cracks your pad, you're going to be pissed at me. And I don't want you to be mad at us, because you just did us a favor by putting this pad in. Right. And we did a stamped concrete. It made it look beautiful. Yeah. Because it was just gravel for years. Yeah.
I know exactly where you mean.
And so then all of a sudden, codes got involved the next year when I didn't remove them. And one of the neighbors complained. They were like, oh, he's got to remove those. He thinks he's the alderman and he doesn't have to do it. I'm like, listen, I went up to codes. They said, talk to DPW. DPW gave me that advice. It was all verbal. Nothing was in writing. And then so they took me to court.
Oh, yeah, that's frustrating.
I was like, nope, screw you guys. You take me to court. And they were like, if you just remove them and put in removable ballards, we will drop any fines. And it was like... which I guess is the protocol for everybody. So some people were like, oh, he didn't get fined because he was the alderman. It was like, no, that's what they do for everybody. Your first dog complaint, you show up to court, don't let your dog bark again. And you know, the judge usually waives it, you know, waives the first offense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what happened. So I put in the parking, and it's like, I'm just waiting because I put like $6,000 into a concrete pad for a subway that I could have just put dirt back in. And
It's very frustrating when you're putting money into something or you're really trying hard, and common sense doesn't prevail, and you just.
And then even when you have a common sense argument, everybody backtracks.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Should have got it in writing. Like,
yeah.
It's like, but it made so much sense.
Right.
I didn't want the plow truck to break my.
Yeah.
My pad.
Well, and in my case, it was like, hey, I am just trying to hang on here. Like, I'm just trying to get through this till we can get to full capacity.
And I need to take my
New York
down.
City, in New York City, they're making all these exceptions for restaurants to literally put full-fledged, like, you know, plastic covered what do you call those things?
The sneeze guards, but like salad bar stuff on everything.
Everything, and then they're building them into the roads, and they're closing off streets so that restaurants can then improve their capacity by allowing people to sit outside in the middle of winter and eat, right?
And,
so my thought
we made
was,
the exception. We went along with the ABC board, the Alcohol Bureau of Consumption or whatever, or Board of Consumption. They came through the AB board, and they were like, you know, if you want to waive open container, it'll help bars and restaurants. So we're like, okay. So literally, you could just go into a restaurant and just buy a beer, walk out.
Right, because you can't
be
because the capacity inside was so much less. You needed to give people.
Yeah, we were breaking
a place.
those rules, but you can't break the sign permit rule.
Yeah,
or whatever.
Yeah,
like, you can't block an egress. Like, no one's gonna catch on fire and get.
Right, and for us, it was we were staying within the parameters of where you can be away from the building with this awning. My thought was, as soon as the weather starts to improve, we can put our tables out there. People are doing this because they just want to be out. They want to do stuff.
Right.
And to me, it was a big deal. I was going to have to literally have Kohler awning come down from Buffalo, which would have charged me $175 to pull these poles out of the ground that were not blocking the right of way for people. What the problem was, when the snow doohickey that does the sidewalks, the smaller one, was coming the normal path. Because of the normal path, the cut to get around this across the street.
That angle,
the angle. ADA compliant, so why not come at the street a different angle or something? I felt very attacked at a moment when I needed actually some help and advice as to what we were even doing.
What are we doing? You just get it.
COVID.
This is our decision.
Well, it was like picking apart something that really was not at the moment the biggest deal. The biggest deal was I still am paying a lease payment. I'm still paying a lease. I'm still paying disability. My employees. My employees are still basically employed by me, hoping to get them back. Like, it was just a lot of things going on. That was the least of my concern. But that was the number one concern that I might have even heard from the city lawyer about. But I'm not hearing from the mayor just even a calm voice of, we'll get through this as a city. I never heard that. Never saw him come in. Now, I don't want that if I'm mayor. I can't be everywhere. Obviously, he can't be everywhere. But there are some things that are important that need to be addressed. And I'm hoping to be that person who understands, use some common sense and what possibly might be a bother for a business owner or a concern about a person who owns a property that has a drug house that literally has a path in the yard of where people are going in and out buying drugs. That to me is just like, how many months does everyone have to put up with that? At what point will that escalate? Maybe the wrong person is buying drugs that is violent.
Right.
And they're in my neighborhood as we're sitting in our living room. These are things that need to be addressed.
Sure. I used to be the alderman that would do that. I would go up to people's houses. Like, I sat at vacant houses across the street with GoPro on my hat.
And watch it.
And I would and then they would be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm dropping," and I'm like, "Just watching a drug deal."
Yep.
And they would get offended. Like, the police chief actually at the time had to tell me to stop. And he's like, because all of a sudden my wife, she was pregnant with our second one, not the littlest one that you met earlier, but she was pregnant with the second one. She's out in the front yard playing with the first one, and like, there's a couple names like notorious people in the drug community that like if you just said their name, even when we posted on Facebook, people are like, oh, I know them. They're into drugs real bad. They drove by the house in their Escalade, and like, you know, like looked at my wife and were like, hey lady, let your husband know we know where you live. Like, and it was like, and I told the police,
and that's just so not fair.
I was like, what should I do about something like that? And he was like, stop sitting in front of the house across the street from their drug deals and let the cops do their job. And I'm like, you know, I am, but like they can't be at every drug house.
Right.
They can't take them all down. I'm just letting them know the community is aware that they exist.
Right. And
I you know, I'm the guy that also like I just asked him for advice. Like I wasn't gonna stop.
Yeah.
Like because like my wife has nothing to worry about. Like
I
that's
know
Hollywood stuff where the the drive-bys and this ain't Chicago.
Right. Well, and I had a similar situation with my husband because we had, in fact, a house on our street that was being used for drugs. And, you know, it's sad because it's a beautiful big old home. And we would see it constant. And when I would start seeing the traffic increase of people, what they were doing was people on bikes were coming and taking and going and whatever. I just go stand out there on my porch and just watch it. And my husband would say, you know, please don't do that. Like, please come back in the house. I'm like, look, if we are allowing all this to happen and they don't see us out here, they're going to keep doing it.
Right.
Just standing there, making their life uncomfortable, not allowing them to be able to do what they're doing because I'm standing there. If I can just do that, I don't have to say a word.
Sure.
I just need to stand there.
Yeah, make them feel,
and that's sad that we have to feel like that, you know, and we're not the only ones. This happens all over the country, all over the world. I know it's no different, but, you know, I you know, and then eventually the police absolutely did what they were supposed to at like 8:30 at night with, what do they call that? A flashbang?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and literally blew up the whole neighborhood with light. And my immediate reaction was hit the floor. Like, told my husband, get on the floor. Like, nobody should feel that way.
Sure.
I guess what I'm saying is as a mayor, I understand all these issues within the neighborhoods because I'm in the neighborhood.
Right.
I see it and I understand it, and it would be not something I want to overlook by any stretch of the imagination. And if there's anything further we can do, obviously I am absolutely very proud of our police and our fire department, and I believe that they're doing everything they could do. And I bet you if you ask them, there's probably things that could be better. And that's what I hope to do is listen to what they feel needs to happen to make things better, not just start as a campaign, a way to campaign, say, this is what I'm going to do. Well, the fact of the matter is I live the reality of what is happening, but I'd want to know from them first, what can we do?
Right. Because sometimes they have
not
better
an
inkling
authority.
because you're not a firefighter, you're
That's
not a cop.
That's right.
Yeah, so finding out things. Like, yeah, maybe there is an outside the box.
Yeah.
Solution.
Like no way would you ever want to micromanage them. They know best what needs to be done. But they need to tell us what needs to be done. They need to tell us what they need, what resources would make it better. I thought at the beginning of all of this, one of the first people I heard from was someone who said, I'm concerned for our police department. They need this and they need that, and it's like these things they need, there's grants for. Why are we not seeking those? Well, they have their hands full. Obviously, they cannot be writing grants. Writing a grant is not an easy process. I did it for the community theater, for Olean Community Theater, and it's not something I would write on my resume, but in fact, it did win the grant. It was the only arts culture grant that was awarded in our whole region. $200,000 for the synagogue, for the remodel. Unfortunately, that project just did not come to fruition, but in fact, that grant I wrote did. and it wasn't easy. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not up to our police chief to write a grant. If we don't have a grant writer, which I don't believe we do, Carrie. I mean, honestly, amazing job Carrie and that department has done, from Mary George to Carrie to the present people that work there. I can't say enough about that, because that is a difficult process.
I mean, every time when I was on the council and when I see her at the meetings, I hear her mumble under her breath, if she's listening to this, that she wants more workload. I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, please tell me that is not true.
Like, please don't hire any more people for my division. Just
oh my gosh,
I'll let me handle it all. And
oh my gosh, I mean, like I'm the type of person that I'd probably want to sit there with her and talk about all these things. No, I loved writing that grant. It was a challenge, but yet, you're telling a story the only way you can, because you live here.
Right.
And I'm a huge advocate for theater, because my son, in fact, at 8, 9 years old, was trying to figure out his path, and when he found that, my God, he became this person that just he just blossomed. So to me, it was like, no one could tell that story better than I can.
Right.
No one can tell the story of Olean better than a person who's living here.
Right.
And for me, writing that grant was just a huge relief, and it was a challenge that I loved. And so for me, that would be my thing. I would want to do that grant writing if at all possible.
Yeah,
it's important. So, but anyway, we could go on and on.
Yeah.
But
I
appreciate.
I
appreciate the time that you've given me, and
no problem. You're
apologize.
You're
to
setting
anyone.
the bar high for the other mayoral candidates. I mean, you're pushing 3 hours.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. You're
like
I said, you're pushing the bar high.
Well.
So in closing, what I'll end with is this: would you, if we're working on potentially hosting a debate as we get later into the season, after any primaries and things like that.
Yeah.
So would you be open to a debate?
100%.
Awesome.
More than 100%. I'm hoping.
Setting a bar high and committing half of the debate stage. So.
Absolutely. No, I think, again, back to what we talked about earlier, it's the way to get to the end of people want to know what the difference is, and people want to hear opinions, and they want to hear questions asked and how are they answered. I think it's a huge important part of the election, and I am absolutely looking forward to that.
Awesome.
And hopefully it's a friendly debate, and obviously the mayor has history of what he says that he's done. I do as well, not in the same capacity, but I think it really boils down to more what you're going to do in the future.
So I think one-on-one conversations like this are great, and then I also think that the side-by-side is good. That's why I like a debate as well, because you get to see from all angles, if you will, right? You get to see this person having a conversation with this person and that person, and then you get to see them kind of answering questions side-by-side, seeing their own inflection, kind of having that, like you said, that emotion in the room. You get to actually physically see the person, you shake their hand, and then it's still friendly.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, as far as I'm concerned, there's no usefulness to hammer home what wasn't done or what could have been done that wasn't done, and
setting animosity aside.
Yeah. It's more about what are we doing for our future.
Okay.
That is what we at this point need to be all about. What does our future hold? So that I look forward to not just a debate, but more of a discussion of what is your plan.
Right.
Got to have a plan. It cannot be left to others to do. So.
Sounds good.
All right.
They can find you on Facebook.
So honestly, my thought is I need to make sure that, I hand in the signature petitions, and I thank everyone that signed my petition. I got plenty enough to cover everything, what I needed, but I wanted to save really the more about who I am for the campaign, which will begin this month. We'll have a website. Will be always available. I've had great conversation. text with people just via Facebook. Like,
Gotcha.
Happy to do that. Probably as it increases, might not be able to do it quite as much, but I think it helps for people to get to know me if they feel they want to reach out with Messenger on my Facebook page for right now. That's great, but I'll have a website. And
A burner phone. Everyone has
Well, is that right? I don't know, maybe. But
some of the aldermen got burner phones. I'm like one of the few that got my own. I just kept my same phone number for everything.
yeah,
It's the same phone number for the businesses as it is for when I was an alderman to
right.
to my tenants call that number. So
Yeah.
but yeah, no, that's yeah, but
Yeah.
let us know because what happens with that distribution I was telling you about. I'll be creating a profile for you, and then so when people are downloading on Apple or wherever, they can actually see every podcast on that channel that she's in, and here's her Twitter, here's her Blue Sky, here's her Facebook, here's her website or Instagram, and it gives you like a whole kind of a personal portfolio on here so people can see your work.
Yes. And so with that being said, I will have all that. I have
Awesome.
amazing couple people that want to see me succeed, and they're going to help me roll that all out, and I am very confident it'll be great. We've already got a good start on it. So I will be accessible. I mean, if nothing else, I hope this proves that I like to talk. So if anyone ever wants to reach out to me and they ever want to meet, in a public setting and talk to me one-on-one, I'm all about that. I have no problem at all speaking about plans and being accessible.
Awesome.
So, all right.
Awesome. Well, thanks
okay,
for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching today. We will see you guys tomorrow morning on the morning podcast. And don't forget to check out any links that we put in the description below. That'll take you to what Amy has thus far, and she'll have more to come later.
Awesome.